6:02. Good morning. What's going on from the 104.5 The Zone Studios? I'm Robert Walsh. Super Bowl week continues. We got an injury update on Chiefs guard Joe Thuney, who said in an interview this week that his status is up in the air, whether or not he will be able to practice this week, just taking a day at a time. He says he has never been in this position before. Also got an update on Kadarius Toney, who said he was not going at the Chiefs in his IG Live. He was actually going at Giants fans in his IG Live, which was a funny way to do that. We heard from Roger Goodell yesterday as he spoke to the media, announced that the NFL will play its first ever Friday game of the year, and it will play it in Brazil for the first time ever. The opponent of the Eagles will be announced closer to the time of the game. And the Giants found their defensive coordinator yesterday. It is former Tennessee defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. Giants last interviewed Bowen January 12th and took their time finding the right fit at D.C. The Giants have now effectively placed Wink Martindale. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Tuesday morning on RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast, and the full show is back together again with Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh behind the glass. My name is Will Bowling. The Tennessee Titans officially have new coordinators. Tennessee gets back on the hardwood tomorrow night and gets back in court soon against the NCAA. A week away from an injunction hearing as Austin Price gives us all the latest on that. Coming up this morning in Hour 3, Ron Slay and you, of course, joining us here as well this morning at 615-737-1045. Tuesday, February the 6th. How are we, everybody? Good morning.
Good morning.
We're
good this morning, I think. A little bit cooler this morning than it was yesterday morning. I think we're going to hit just some 50s today. Yesterday was actually like a very nice, mild day yesterday.
I know. I felt like a lot of people were out and about taking it in because you never know what you're going to get in February, right?
No, you do not. No, you do not. Good day, though, man. Glad to have the show back.
I know.
Welcome back.
All
Bill.
in one place.
Yeah, all in one place, man. How was your downtime?
It was good. It was very good. I told Kayla while you were making coffee that I, Saturday with my brother in London, had a new steps record in a day. Besides when I was running, because this wouldn't have been that much running. But 26,000 steps.
Woo.
26,000
on Saturday.
Oh, my.
So I think that included 8 pubs, 3 orders of fish and chips, some domestic and foreign lagers. Guinness tastes a lot better in Europe.
Do it.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't know what the difference is. There was a cider I already really liked called Magners. That's a free shout out I'm going to freely give now for the foreseeable future. And they serve it to you in a glass with ice. And then they give you the glass bottle and you like pour it over the ice.
Yeah.
And it's very
Interesting.
good. But no, we saw, 3 soccer stadiums. Because my brother and I just like took a train to West London and just like walked around and like looked up like best bars by this club. And then we would go to that bar and then we'd walk around their stadium. And then we'd do like the 2 stops over. Because there's 2 teams in West London who are like 3/4 of a mile apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just like took one tube stop and then walked around the other one, then like got a drink at their bar. Rugby bigger in England than I thought it was.
Rugby is?
6 Nations rugby was on at every pub. And I went, and we were the ones going to the bar like, you have the football on anywhere. They'd be like, no, it's rugby today, mate. Like,
It's that new Netflix, right?
well, yeah, 6 Nations.
6 Nations?
Yeah. Yeah, 6 Nations. So it's the 6 Nations are Italy, England, Ireland, France, and then Wales and Scotland are the 6 Nations this year.
Remember when we went and watched the Tennessee game over there? It was a big rugby match on that night also.
really?
That was the World Cup. Yeah.
That was the World Cup.
Of rugby?
Because we were in a, Rugby World Cup is on the same schedule, basically.
Oh, wow. Where do they play it? The World Cup?
It depends every time. It travels, I think, like ours does. Ours being Soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was interesting. I did not expect so many of them to care about rugby.
Yeah. Well, that's what, I mean, a lot of them will call American football soft because you guys do it with pads. We don't do it with pads. All I've ever heard. I played with a guy. Well, he was on that internet, Christian Williamson.
Right.
Yeah, Scotland Williamson. Yeah, he was another guy that played rugby that came over on the NFL Europe track as of recently. He's back over there being a pro and an ambassador, I think, to the NFL also right now.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure is.
I did make friends. At one point, the guys were leading me, just the two of them, just three of us together, jolly mates, were leading me under a bridge to a pub around the corner. And I looked at them at one point and I was like, if you guys are going to rob me, this would probably be the time to do it.
Yeah.
You said it out loud.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right?
Well, they were
Putting a
super
lot of
nice. Like
trust in these new
I was
friends.
I was at a West Ham game Thursday night when I got there, and they are a team that shares London with Arsenal, who I'm like not really a fan of, obviously. But I was just like, I'll just go and watch another game. And I sat next to these guys and I told them I was an MLS commentator or whatever, and they were like fascinated by it. And so we talked about it, and like I watched the whole game with them because they were sitting next to me. And they're like, we're going to take you to a proper West Ham pub after this game. I'm not doing the full British accent right now.
We were wondering if you'd come back with
No,
a British
nobody
accent.
wants that.
That
And,
we had bets on
I've
that.
been counting them. That's 3 times.
And they were like, we're gonna
Let's
take.
go.
Well, I'm not saying it on my own though. I'm just imitating them.
Absolutely.
But they're like, we're gonna take you to a proper West Ham pub. And at one point, they looked at me and they were like, we probably would not have trusted you if the tables were turned on this, but we're glad you're trusting us. And I was like, yeah, me too. And I went in there, and it was essentially like a college house party was what was happening.
Oh, get out.
So I just got adopted, and it was so much fun. Like I only had a drink there. They like brought me shots, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna draw the line on. I didn't see anyone pour this themselves, so I'm out.
You got to be smart on that.
So I pushed the line perfectly of like risk, making friends, getting adopted. I was there by myself for the first 2 days. So my brother didn't get there till Saturday.
I thought Wes flew with you.
No.
He didn't. Oh, man.
No, because I was gonna go with one of my high school buddies, and then his family moved, like didn't have his passport. So my brother bought a ticket last minute to go do like half the trip with me, and then he's flying back today.
Okay.
But no, it was really fun. It was really, really fun. It's like it was I like I said, pushed the limits of like getting adopted, but also still like not getting myself
in trouble.
And the
biggest news is Arsenal won.
That is the biggest news. 3-1. It was everything I'd hoped and dreamed. Tears were shed as expected. I lost my voice immediately in like the 15th minute, yelling horrible things at 11 players from the northwest of England. It was really fun. Everyone is so nice there. Like the best way I can describe it and make this relevant to the people who are like, "Will shut up and please talk football." This you're no longer there. It feels like you're going to a college football game. In that country.
Interesting.
That is the best way that I can describe it because you have so many teams that college football is the equivalent to Premier League football.
Yeah.
So you have all of these pubs, and I'll show you the pictures, like what I can, like we can get into a break, but like you have these pubs, you get there early, you have to show your game ticket to go in for most of them. You have to be a home fan. You cannot be a fan of the visiting team because they have a designated pub that all of them have to go to if they're going to get there early.
Wow.
Because there will be fights. Like they'll kill each other.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they'll absolutely batter each other. So
Wait,
you just
is that
have
a
like
lingo?
these outdoor what?
Batter each other?
Yeah.
Is that lingo?
Yeah, it is. So they have these just bars with these outdoor areas and tents over them and heaters, and everything's in a plastic cup, and there's so many bartenders, you never have to wait in line. And at some point it gets so full, they just stop letting people in, and there's a line. You have to show your ticket, and it's one out, one in. But that part of it was really cool. And then everyone's like singing the chants and stuff in the pubs and then stuff like that. So the other thing that's different is you can't take your drink to your seat. And so being in the concourse is electric because at halftime, like everyone just beer line, go.
I'm guessing that's probably because of the beer throwers or bottle throwers.
No, it's because people have died from just like getting too drunk and trampling each other to run on the field.
Oh, they had that big
1989
Yes.
Sheffield Wednesday in Liverpool, the
Yeah.
Hillsborough disaster. And that's a separate, like it's a little bit separate, but that was one of their kind of sweeping changes within all of the hooliganism. And hooliganism was different.
Yeah.
Hillsborough, I won't get into the weeds on that, but that was different than hooliganism. But that being said, there are there's people who are crazy. Like we think SEC football is what all of them feel like. Like the SEC is the perfect example
Yeah.
of how they all act like for their team.
It's super unique though with their soccer. You speak of it being like going to a college game, and that's because it's so community based. I didn't
Yes.
realize like if you go
Depends.
over there, well, it depends. Well, where were we at?
Depends on the team.
Tottenham.
Yeah.
Tottenham's in the middle of a community.
Yeah.
Like, what would you correlate that to? It'd be like putting Nissan Stadium in East Nashville.
Packers.
Nashville.
Packers.
The Packers are every
New
stadium is
England.
like Lambeau. Not every stadium. Like, and the
Yeah.
reason I say it depends is because there are some teams that are like internationally branded clubs who have people like me and my brother going there to watch them.
Okay.
Like Arsenal is a community club, but like Brentford, who has a 15,000 seat stadium, and like if you live within 20 minutes of it, you are there supporting the
And
team.
you are
Right.
a fan of
Yeah.
them. Like, yes.
But they're
it's
in neighborhoods.
crazy.
Like,
there
just
are.
drop
Yeah,
a stadium.
right there. Big old palace right there in the middle of it.
615-737-1045, a regular Tuesday lineup this morning on RKW with Austin Price of VolQuest joining us at 8:20. Ron Slay of SEC Network and 3HL at 9:20 this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about Brian Callahan's new staff, of which official moves were made yesterday, which we will get to as the show continues. And interested to get y'all's take on the most important characteristic in a good position coach. I know you guys spoke with Mary Kay Cabot about Bill Callahan. And as we evaluate all of these new position coaches and assistants, going inside the locker room to understand what differentiates a good and bad position coach from one another in y'all's experience. We'll get to that coming up in hour 2 this morning. But when we come back, NFL headlines as the Super Bowl circus begins in Vegas. I'm sure that will be completely safe and reasonable and easy for everyone involved.
Always.
We'll get to that coming up next.
All right, are you sick and tired of those achy joints? Dread the idea of surgery? You can call QC Kinetics today. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson, and listen, the state of healthcare is always changing. The old ideas like steroids and surgery are no longer your only options. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative, non-surgical, drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. So maybe you're dealing with some knee pain or back pain, shoulder pain, from arthritis or a injury of old. Don't let this pain keep you from living your best life. QC Kinetics advanced state-of-the-art treatments actually harness and direct your body's natural ability to restore and repair that damaged tissue. Make 2024 the year that you reclaim your mobility, reclaim your independence, walk and run and play, and live without the danger of trauma or surgery, and without harmful drugs. So call QC Kinetics today for a free consultation. It's easy. It's 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone, 615-737-1045, our number. R.I.P. Toby Keith, man. This one's really sad.
Hate to hear this.
Yeah.
Really, really sad. We will certainly be spinning some Toby Keith this morning.
Yep.
But passed away peacefully last night, surrounded by his family in his early 60s. It's crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
He's dealing
right
with
there.
stomach cancer, I think.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
62 years old. Yeah.
Way too young. Way too young.
Young, man. Jeez.
So we will certainly be playing some Toby Keith today. No doubt about that. Streaming live this morning on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Push, please.
And I will say it feels very nice to be drinking 8th and Rose coffee again.
Yeah, because it's a lot of tea over there, right?
Honestly, not as much as you think. Like in London, they drink coffee.
Yeah, I drink some of the black tea there.
Yeah, like, well, they have
was
tea,
pretty
obviously.
good.
But like you can go anywhere and there's
Get
coffee at
coffee.
every corner, but it's not
Yeah.
as good as this.
No, not as
Eighth
good
and
as
roast
this.
trumps them all.
I needed it this morning, too. I leave my phone somewhere. Oh, I had thought I lost it somewhere.
Burying
That's
it
rare,
on his computer.
Because I always know where it's at.
So NFL headlines from Las Vegas. The 49ers are livid about the field at UNLV. This is interesting. I'm curious what your experience was practicing before a Super Bowl. So the NFL put a sod field on top of field turf and started laying it out last week when the NFL ordinarily requires Super Bowl practice fields to meet certain standards. Apparently this field is too soft. Kyle Shanahan not happy about it.
Yeah. How did they mess this up, though? It's like the NFL operations. You know that you were going to have to use this field. Now, I'm not sure if that's a UNLV thing as far as getting the side in, but, like, you knew the teams were set. I think they said they put it in, like, a few days ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
Of course it's not going to be set by that time. I don't care how hot and how much you water it. That is a health risk right there.
They were talking about it on Two Pros and a Cup of Joe. Such a clunky name for a
Yeah, it
show,
really
by
is.
the way. They were talking about, so it's a turf field, but they put sod over the turf. Weird. Because apparently the field wasn't already in good form.
That's like putting jeans over your khakis. That's
Yeah.
essentially what that is. Like, it put jeans over khakis with doing something like that.
Yeah, come on, you don't wipe before you poop. What are we doing here?
Exactly.
True.
What are we talking about? Like, it's like dropping the leash to your dog and say, walk yourself. Like, it's just all wrong is what that is.
Well, and it's so I think Kansas City is over at the Raiders practice facility. So it's like they're getting pretty much the top of the line treatment. And you're
class.
looking at the 49ers, they have got to be pissed.
Yes, they have
Because
to be.
you're right. I mean, you're putting sod on top of a turf field. It hasn't been done properly in terms of the time. UNLV, look, let's be honest, they don't have the most up-to-date things when it comes to football facility. It's not like their program is
That's what I've
running away
heard.
with championships, no pun intended. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, I feel like the Niners did get a little snubbed there. Not on purpose, maybe, but
Yeah, because there's a little bit of a hate between Vegas and the 49ers anyway, though, naturally, right? So, that's an NFL situation. As much as I want to believe that sucks for the 49ers because you can't properly practice on nothing like that. And, like, how are you supposed to even get your footing down?
that's the biggest thing, right, Ramon?
Yeah.
Because you're not like tackling guys to the ground during the week of practice, but you're going through the plays, like your cuts and all that. I would think that's a big part of having the field be right.
The majority of the work should have been done in San Francisco, Santa Clara anyway, I would think. But you still got to get some full speed timing stuff that goes into these practices leading up to the Super Bowl. It's just one of those mental things where it screws you over to know that the turf is sliding underneath you.
Sure.
The optics of it aren't great considering the issues on the actual field in Glendale last year, when Eagles players were slipping left and right, and for whatever reason, Chiefs players were not nearly as much because they had longer cleats. The conspiracy theories of that are funny if you want to go into that. But
I've not heard that one.
oh yeah, no, it's like the longtime Super Bowl turf manager was retiring and is a Chiefs guy.
Sure did.
Yeah, so that was his last Super Bowl to work last year, and he retired. And the Chiefs just magically had longer cleats to be ready for a bad field.
And wasn't he overwatering the turf, I think, last year or something? Like, it was something crazy
something
going
like
on. It was like, you're right. It was a conspiracy around what was going on during the Super Bowl last year. I remember that.
Roger Goodell's saying they had 23 experts out there, including the Players Union. Says it is softer than what they practiced on, but that happens. Anyway.
You can't do that though. Like they got sued over that once. One of my former teammates sued them over the Hall of Fame Bowl. You remember when that turf was real terrible in Canton?
In Canton.
Yeah, that was unplayable. That's what that was.
Didn't that happen a while ago too? In Cincinnati, I think they went and practiced at Dayton. That was on Two Cups and Two Pros and a Cup.
The show
Joe.
before us.
Exactly. They were talking about that too, and AJ Green, I believe, hurt himself.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, unfortunately, that happens." No, it doesn't happen.
No,
Because you can't be letting those guys practice on fields like that.
Like I know athletes are big babies with stuff like that, but you can understand why. Like having a level of comfortability on your playing surfaces matter. They do, especially with the big game like this coming up. Like you somewhat feel like you've been slighted already.
Right.
Paul in Franklin, first up with the phone lines this morning, 615-737-1045. What's up, Paul?
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hey, well, I'm just going to tell you, it's great to be alive and be in Tennessee. Two quick things, and I'll get off here. Y'all done hit on one of them. You poke the bear, and you poke the bear, then you don't understand when the bear wakes up and attacks you. That's what the NCAA's done, Will. And let me tell you something. I've done read all this extensively. Y'all know how I bleed orange and Titan blue, too. The NCAA done made a huge mistake, and the bear, which is the University of Tennessee, is fixing to eat them up. And you just stay tuned on that. The last thing I got to say is this, and y'all done hit on it. When 9/11 happened, this man wrote a song called Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. And we listened to that song, and we wasn't Republicans or Democrats then. We was Americans. And shout out and rest in peace to the great Toby Keith. Hey, God bless y'all. Go Vols and tighten up.
There we go.
Love
Paul.
it.
Nice, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the call.
Comes through. It's just quick,
Good stuff, Paul.
good, and informative all at
Yeah.
the same time.
And he's got that accent. I'm like, man, that just gets me. Gets me going in the morning.
Whenever you want to have a pint, Paul, just find me and I'm going to know exactly who you are.
Now you're the one with the British
I had to, Will.
I was gonna say,
it's
a
rubbing
pint.
off on me, man. Listen,
a good thing.
I wasn't mad at you saying that. I was just acknowledging that they had influence on you the same way Paul influenced me. So, look, if we ain't got to be Democrat and Republican, we can just be people. We can have a
Amen.
pint.
I did get a tweet,
Amen.
by the way, from Shane on Twitter who says he's been told Guinness tastes better in Europe because of the water.
Because of the water.
I believe that one.
I don't know.
There's certain
one.
pizza places that say they got better dough better bread because of the water. So
In New
who
York,
knows?
like all their bagels
Right.
and stuff, they say it's for their water.
Can
See?
confirm.
Yeah.
Can confirm.
Can confirm.
Okay,
Water's a
so
big
it makes
thing.
sense then.
On the NCAA point, we'll get into that with Austin Price at 8:20 this morning and the hearing that has been set a week from today for next steps within that. But the NCAA is dealing with multiple cases at once right now. And the fact that Dartmouth players were officially ruled as employees of the university yesterday is perhaps even more meaningful than what Tennessee's doing. So the NCAA is fighting a lot of losing battles right now, and 3 lawsuits of the many that are currently going against them that, like, I've never been more certain that they are no longer an organization within about 5 years.
I'd love to know who put that batter in their back. I'd love to know. Hey, go mess with Tennessee again, man. They won't fight back this time.
Themselves.
Not smart.
It's like, come on, man. Y'all were fine. Y'all could have just left these cases alone. I know we're gonna get more into it, but goodness gracious, NCAA. I hadn't seen a single positive thing come out in their favor. I have not just yet.
I mean, what, they think that they were going to have people on their side after this? Like, if anything, it completely stoked the fire of other
more.
teams, other, states to get involved in this, because they're seeing firsthand that this is not something in terms of what the NCAA is going after that is going to work, and that should be even happening. And I just feel like it's such a reach what they did with Tennessee. And you're right, and Paul's right. They did poke the bear, and they poked the wrong bear because, they weren't going to sit back here and take it. It's almost like bullying, right? They're bullying these teams, these certain places in terms of the colleges and the reasons why they're kind of poking the bear. And then it's like, dang, we're not dealing with this. Tennessee's like, you did it to us once. We did the right thing. You do it to us a year later, we're going to stand up for ourselves.
I'll tell you another thing that speaks on bullying. I'd love to have been Mike Vrabel, though, with bullying. That is hilarious.
My gosh.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. The report by Rossini that he was a bully to folks.
We'll get to it. Well, that he was too big of a human to be an NFL coach.
Now that, I am sorry, is ridiculous.
You know what? In that world, I can see that being true.
But, I mean, Dan Campbell is a big man.
I could see that I can see that.
There's a lot of David
true.
Teppers of the world who are small men in a football world of big men who are intimidated by the actual, men in the room.
Yeah, I could tell that was like that legitimately. I could see that being true, even if he ain't even trying to.
It's like the intimidation factor.
It is, but it ain't. Like some people believe the myth and the legend of what a person is sometimes, and they're just scared people anyway. So that is a later conversation we must have.
And I've been saying that's the reason I'm not higher up in this whole corporate thing is because all our bosses are intimidated by my hulking body.
Yeah.
That's why they keep me behind the glass back here.
And your flowing hair that you keep in a bun.
I'm serious. It's the full head of hair. It's the hulking body. It's that when I stand next to giants like Ramon Foster and Ron Slay, that they look like regular people. I think that's the issue.
That's what it is. Bert, I appreciate you, man. You always bring it back to center, dog.
It's like Michael Scott telling Kevin that back in the day, he would have been the boss.
back in the day, I'd be running this whole shebang.
500 years ago, you would have been the boss.
That's true. He did say that.
Said that you used to be revered for size.
Will, okay, I'm sorry. I'm taking us all the way off the rails.
Okay.
I've been waiting for you to get back.
Okay.
Thank you. What?
The Titans have a new defensive coordinator.
That's right.
You know his name.
That's right.
What is his name?
Denard Wilson.
The Titans have their own Nard dog now.
Oh my goodness.
I've been
outstanding.
waiting for you to come back
Nard
only
dog.
to drop the Nard dog.
The Nard dog. That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. Buck
You
Rising.
have a version of me to put in there now, side by side with that. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Was he in an a cappella group at his college?
He may have been.
615-737.
Well, he called defenses,
Maybe
man.
if he comes on the show, we'll ask him.
Yeah.
There
There
it
it
is.
is.
The Nard. Why did you save
dog.
that for him, man? You know he lives in that world, man.
What we need to do is reinforce all the walls in the defensive meeting room to make sure holes cannot be punched in them for the Nard dog.
Hopefully he doesn't miss any games to go to anger management.
Lord, bear me strength.
No.
I mean,
Hey, bear me that blitz.
you hope his defenses are that angry, though. We'll take that
Yeah.
one.
Well, I wonder if the field will be good in Sao Paulo to kick off the 2024 season because at Corinthians Arena, the Eagles will be playing Friday night football this upcoming season. Week 1, September 6th. Eagles against a team who will be announced at a later date. First time the NFL has played a game on Friday night of its opening weekend in more than 50 years.
Can we just go off on the NFL just for a second?
You may. You played there.
Like, legitimately, can we not just have anything to ourselves? Like, why do you have to have
that was a
our
bad thing.
eyes on Friday nights? You know there's kids playing football on Friday nights. Your future stars are showcasing themselves on Friday nights, and you decide that you want to put your big show on television on Friday night. Like, you already got Monday, you got Thursday, you got Sunday, and Saturday. Now we got to take Fridays. What if I want to take my boo thing out for dinner, but I got to find the nearest TV to watch
That's what
Friday
you're gonna
Night
have to
Football, NFL edition?
You say that like it's a bad thing
I
again.
know. I'm just saying. I'm just letting you know that the monster is continually walking and taking up everything it possibly can. I do love the idea of that playing in Brazil. I'll be honest with you. I think it'd probably be pretty cool to play down there too. But NFL, man, I'm trying to go watch some high school football, okay?
Well,
let us have something.
That's the thing. Every day of the week, you can find almost the NFL on. And this is going to add to, I know it's one game, but it is a Friday night. And my biggest question was Lucas Panzica going?
That'd be good. See Lucas go down there. Probably not.
The thing that we all need to do, we need to stand together and we need to boycott the NFL until Sunday. That's what we need to do. No NFL football in my
Till
household
Sunday.
until Sunday.
Something I can get behind.
Yeah,
Will.
that's good.
Something I can
People are going to
behind.
get so mad they're not going to watch Wednesday night. They're not going to watch NFL Wednesday night.
Or Thursday.
This upcoming fall
Right.
because of the game on Friday.
I'm somewhat shocked, but I'm really not, though. The NFL is going to find the many ways that they can to get as much exposure. So will that be a Thursday night game also? Because it's usually the
Probably.
Thursday kickoff.
Yeah.
Thursday,
assume
Friday,
so.
and Sunday. Here, college football, we give you one day. And college football does have some Monday night games, too, with that Labor Day.
Early season non-conference games in high school football. You know, we're not getting into rivalries yet. September 6th. I mean, does every high school football team start by that point?
Yeah.
Pretty
September.
much
What
now,
about
Because there
Yeah.
aren't still high schools that go back after Labor Day, right?
West Tennessee? They usually start up
Well,
by
I know here.
August.
End of
yeah,
August.
Here is it's middle
It's
of
August also.
You're playing jamborees in first week in August.
Is
Yeah.
it already in middle of August now?
It's
Jeez.
middle of August.
Well, most schools go back around here first week in August.
First week in August. Yeah, it's about right. 2
That's
weeks into the
crazy.
school system. Yeah,
Usually
you
like
said,
August 13th or 14th or something like that.
That's
And that
about-
jamboree is set up like
First week in August.
First week in August, sure is.
But for other states is why I ask. Because there are states that go back way later than Tennessee does to school.
Pennsylvania.
So maybe the rationale behind that is every state even playing high school football by that point? Probably. But it's interesting.
There'll just be a lot of parents in the stands,
Mm-hmm.
dads, and moms who love football too, and they're gonna have their little iPads,
Absolutely.
and they won't miss what Johnny D did over there because they'll be looking down and seeing what their their favorite Eagles player did
Seeing
in
if the
Brazil.
bet-
Well, it also won't
Yeah.
be Friday night because it's in a different time
That's
zone.
right. It is a technically.
So
time
it could
zone,
be
right?
at like 3 p.m. Eastern or 4 p.m. Eastern. So that's the other part of it.
Okay.
Truth.
615-737-1045. More coaching news in the NFL yesterday where a once hot commodity at OC is now without an OC job at all. Where does Eric Bieniemy land in this coaching carousel? We'll talk about it next. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Stop by and see them at any of their 4 locations in the airport or at 8th Avenue, Charlotte, and the Broadview at Vanderbilt. 615-737-1045. Titans headlines in 15 minutes, where coordinator hires became official last night. But, guys, the Washington Commanders have fired offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy after one season. Dan Quinn bringing in a new regime. How do we feel about Bieniemy after a year in Washington?
I personally don't know how to feel about him as far as what he did this year and what's the perception of him either. Because everybody's highly praised this guy for being the next up. And he clearly either has some personality issues, some people issues, and attitude issues, just some issues that we don't understand. Or maybe it was more Andy Reid. This is one of those situations to where I'm not sure what's the difference between what Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan did, but clearly Coach Reid and Eric Bieniemy did not have that same similar relationship. Somehow, somewhere, he's rubbed somebody the wrong way. I did expect him to be somewhere, and maybe he's not that far removed from Coach Andy Reid. But it's very telling that he doesn't have a job when you've heard stuff about him, and it seemed like the same context when it came down to how people have viewed Vrabel, too. You know what I'm saying? Like that attitude stuff that doesn't seem to fly when you walk in and have meetings with folks and got to present yourself a certain type of way. The edge is good. Dan Campbell's proven that to us. The edginess is good for a team. But can that person lead an entire franchise? That seems to be the case when it comes down to looking at Eric Bieniemy right now. That has been the one conversation that people have had. If you remember last year, the run-ins or the conversation around him and Patrick Mahomes and how they were butting heads, and Patrick diffused it and said, no, this is just how we operate in. I respect him and all those types of things. He clearly hadn't did the wash and rinse at all correctly as far as Eric Bieniemy goes.
That's like the strangest assistant situation I've ever seen in terms of you would think by now he would have had a lot more interest in being a head coach just because he's tied to Andy Reid, right? And the offense that goes along with Andy Reid. And those were the questions when he was interviewing for jobs out of Kansas City. It was like, yeah, there's not a lot of good stuff, though, that's coming out of this. And you wonder, what is it, though? Because we're not even hearing specifics. It's almost like it's on the down low that they don't want to talk about it. Because even with this situation under Ron Rivera last year in Washington, you didn't hear a ton what was going on there because he was a coordinator again, and we didn't know what was going to happen to Ron Rivera. And then it kind of exposed itself that he was probably going to get fired. And then it kind of went quiet. I forgot Eric Bieniemy was even still technically there and that they just fired him. And there wasn't a lot of talk around him this year getting a head coaching job. So you're wondering, with all this stuff that goes on that we might not hear about with him specifically, has he pissed off the wrong people in the NFL that he's just not going to be a head coach at some point? I wonder, because it's getting a little weird.
It's two situations I look at that's super unique when you break this down as to why and the hows. Brian Flores is still employed while having an open lawsuit against the NFL. And, of course, you have guys like Greg Williams who also had Bounty Gate going on and still got employed also. So I'm not sure what Bieniemy has done or why he doesn't either interview well or have great person skills, but something is holding him back. And college, I don't know.
I think the difference about Greg Williams was he was never head coach after the Bounty Gate. Like, to this point, like, Eric Bieniemy will still be hired somewhere.
Right, as a coordinator.
Maybe as a coordinator, maybe not. He's still going to have a job.
Yeah.
But there is something missing in the interview process for him that is not missing for others. And I just don't believe it's as black and white as, I mean, that's maybe a poor choice of words, but I don't think it's as black and white as what he looks like. I really don't.
That's the reason I bring up Flores. Flores might have the most flagrant thing going on as an open lawsuit against the people who are employing and paying his checks. And I don't want to make it a black and white thing when it comes down to Bieniemy. There's numerous black head coaches now and people who have been, we're talking about Thomas Brown, we're talking about Denard Wilson, who are future, a lot of folks are saying black head coaches in this league if they continue on that trajectory. And it's been somewhat proven that Bieniemy can call it. Mm-hmm. So it's not a case of mental deficiencies or nothing like that. He's a very smart and bright individual. I don't ever want to minimize him in that type of way. But the conversation will, to your point, does he not interview right? Who has he rubbed the wrong way? It's the only question you have to ask.
Multiple sources tell ESPN.com that players chafed under Bieniemy's leadership style. More than that, though, the offense just wasn't that good. Commanders ranked 25th in scoring and 24th in yards. And then one team source in this piece says that late in the year, the issues were compounded by Bieniemy's desire to throw the ball. Washington led the league with 636 pass attempts this past season. That offensive line was worse than the Titans, though.
It was wretched.
And still trying to throw it, right? That's a great point, right? That's a good point in the F&M Bank chat. The Belichick, Vrabel, and Bieniemy band. Knock Chop said that in the F&M Bank chat.
Wait, what do you mean? Band together and take over a team. He's saying. Okay.
Ooh, that'd be a tough team to play for.
Absolutely not.
The conversation between those guys, it seemed to be very
Similar.
consistent and similar.
I agree.
Definitely. It'd be quite the band. They'd be playing hard rock.
It's an old school mentality. That's what it is. All of them.
How
You know?
long can it last?
I don't think in this day and age, if you don't adapt, you die type of thing. In this new age NFL, in college football, same way.
Yeah.
If you're not a head coach that can adapt, then you're not going to make it.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can be tough though.
Yeah,
Like you can still be a old school, bring your lunch pail every day at practice kind of guy. I mean, your coach for 11 years in the NFL is still that way.
Still
Well,
does
yes,
that way.
but you have to have a balance of that. And those three people in particular, Vrabel, Belichick, and I don't know Eric Bieniemy as much as I do those styles of the other two. But there's no like medium ground, I feel like, with those two.
I think
At least inside a facility.
Yeah. Well, the other challenge of that is you have to have a good cop on your staff. If you're going to be the bad cop, lunch pail, scream in the practice field kind of guy, who is the more soft-spoken assistant that's going to come around behind you and put their arm around a player and say, like, all right, like, you're good.
Yeah. You need
Especially, I think, dealing with the quarterback position because you're dealing with fragile people at times at the quarterback position. And I think we saw in Philadelphia this year the impact of the quarterback guy then becoming the OC and getting promoted and not just being Jalen Hurts' right-hand man and not being able to get up to the same level this past season. 615-737-1045. We'll start with Chris on the other side as we hit the Titans headlines. Coordinators made official. We'll give you the full background next. Hey, what's going on? It's Will Bowling for my friends at Lee Company. Hey, is your heating system keeping up with the cold weather of winter? Well, available 24/7, 365. The professional Lee Company team, they're here to help. And sometimes in Middle Tennessee, maybe it feels warm during the day. Those temperatures still getting down close to the 20s and 30s overnight. The last thing you want is be waking up in the middle of the night freezing. Well, Lee Company, they're here to help. Like I said, 24/7, 365. Call them anytime, and they will be there for you. Their technicians will perform a 22-point inspection as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to keep your home running efficiently this winter. Even better, save $20 on your next heating tune-up visit today. That's $20 off on your home's next heating service. All you got to do is call them, 615-567-1000, or visit them online at leecompany.com for an appointment to keep your home's heating in check. And do it now while the weather is pleasant before our next freeze wave comes here in Middle Tennessee. 615-567-1000 or online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need.
7 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Super Bowl week continues as we get an injury update from Chiefs guard Joe Thuney, who in an interview said his status is up in the air whether he practices this week, just taking it day by day. We heard from Roger Goodell yesterday as he spoke to the media and announced the NFL will play its first ever game in Brazil next year, week 1, and it will be on Friday. Also announced that one of the teams participating in the international match would be the Eagles. The other opponent will not be announced until closer to game time. The Giants found their defensive coordinator yesterday, and it is former Tennessee DC Shane Bowen. The Giants last interviewed Bowen on January 12th and took their time finding the right fit at DC. The Giants have now effectively replaced Wink Martindale. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 starts right now on a Tuesday morning edition of RKW. We are brewed up by 8th and Roast, cultivating community by the cup. Get your favorite retail bag of 8th and Roast coffee at your local Kroger or Whole Foods here in Middle Tennessee as well. And join us this morning on many different platforms, 104.5 FM, 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Twitch, please.
Or the 104.5 The Zone app as well that you can download anywhere in the App Store with podcasts of every single hour posted the second the show ends. That's where you can hear Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling, Robert Walsh, making the show happen behind the glass. 615-737-1045, our number. We are all together again as a full show this morning. Good to be back.
We are.
With the 3 best friends that I got to
And Bert.
That's my hangover. A little melody right there. But
That
What
is
was
what
that from
3HL
again?
will be singing in The Hangover. Yeah,
It
that's what
is.
3HL will be
That's
singing
exactly
this
what
week
they're doing.
in Las
Yeah.
Vegas.
Ugh,
It
gosh.
is. By the way, I got to give credit where credit's due. I've stolen and somewhat adopted Babsy's Twitch please and never really give her credit at the end of it. So here's my umbrella,
There you go.
just blanket statement. Hey, shout out to Babsy for me taking her Twitch please.
It should be getting her money now, like every time
Royalties?
someone says it. Yeah, because that's been going on for a minute.
It has, and she started it. So I just want
Mm-hmm.
to give credit where credit due. I've taken it like it's mine, and I shouldn't be that way.
Those Super Bowl trips are fun doing Radio Row there, but they will be doing a lot of work also.
Yeah.
Like if you
Done it,
guys are,
right?
yes, I have. And it is, you do not really see the sights and go and do things. Like they will be in a convention hall from about 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then they can go, make their money or lose their money. That's for Lady Luck to decide.
At the casinos, those casinos are so dark sometimes. I'm like,
You
Like
know,
literally or just like light wise?
no, the light is just like, casinos are not for me. Let
That's
me
how
just
you
say.
hide the
I'm just gonna
broken
put that out
dreams
there.
of everyone around you.
Casinos are not for me.
Yeah.
Nope.
Have I told you all my story of when I was in Vegas by myself for the draft?
No.
That's a good story.
You wanted to, you
So
gonna tell
essentially
it?
that day, I was doing radio hits on all of our shows, and I was at the NFL draft by myself in Las Vegas. I was the first to report that A.J. Brown had been traded because I was just there when it happened. So, please credit me. No, I'm just kidding. So essentially, I was doing hits on all the shows, and I did 3HL that afternoon, the night before round 1. And I went on there, and I remember Ron Slay telling me, like, all right, what's the first table you're sitting down at? And I was like, probably the dinner table. And they made it clear that there are so many people that would do anything for their company or employer to send them to Vegas, expenses paid by themselves to go do something in the world of football. And I realized that, obviously, that I was living the dream that many have had to go by themselves to Las Vegas on a company's dime, on a radio station's
Love
dime.
that.
So I said, you know what? That's a good point. So I spoke to them. I said, whatever the most antisocial thing I can do is, because the last thing I want to do is be asking so many questions about what to do. And granted, I've played poker, like I play blackjack, like with friends, but not amongst those people with those rules and those, like, I don't know. I just don't want to get anybody's way. It's my personality type. So I go down to where we were staying, because we were staying, like, you can't go to the bathroom without walking through, like, a room with slot machines in Las Vegas. So we're staying, of course, the hotel has a casino on the bottom floor, and you have to, like, walk through there to check in, like, all this stuff. So I was just going to, like, make a bet on a game and then sit there and watch that game. So this was just a couple of years ago. So I walked down there, and I was like, I'd like to bet, please. I didn't say it like that, but essentially, that's what I was doing. I walked down there like, all right, like, what do I need? And they gave me this little card and said, so take this and load money on one of those machines over there. Would you like a free drink?
Yep.
Would you like free slot play for $10, or would you like $10 of card play? And so again, in my mind, what's most antisocial? Slots. Hit me. I said, $10 free slot play, please. All right, there you go. Give me a little card. I probably still have it in my wallet, honestly. So I walk over, have no idea what I'm doing. I sit down, and it's like a $5 max you can put down on one of these machines. Yeah. So I went down, $5. We'll risk it all. Big money, big money, big money, big money. Nothing. Okay. $2. We're going to play it safer. Play it safer. Big money, big money, big money. Nothing. All right. At this point, I'm like, all right, well, I can at least say I did this. Let me just put the last $3 on it.
Yeah.
And see what happens. $3. All of a sudden. Red light flashing. What? Did I do something wrong? Is my first thought of like, oh, did I mess up? Like, what happened? And I'm looking around me like, is someone going to come, like, escort me to my room? Like, sir, you can't, like, whatever. $160 on a $3 bet.
Get out.
With my free
$10.
Wow.
with my free $10. It was like all
Lady
the
luck.
same. It was not the jackpot of what I could get, because I think the max was like 500, but I got $160. I don't know how. I don't know what the rules were. I don't know how this happened. So I got 160. So I was like, all right, one more time. Did $5, got nothing. Cashed out, went upstairs, got dinner, went to
There
bed.
you go.
Smart man.
There you go.
Very smart
Yep.
man.
I still have the $100 bill.
A lot of people
Actually, I
wouldn't have
probably shouldn't
stopped
publicize
at that moment.
No, they'd have chased it. They'd
They
have
would
chased
keep
it.
going.
So I said, you know what? This is my free $10. Ron Slay won't be mad at me now and come pick me up and give me a whooping for not going down there and actually betting. So
Sure.
I've bet. I've made money. I came out, $150. So $155 is what I made.
Yep.
So that is what, a 1,000% increase on
You
what
gotta
I went
count
down
the
there
10
with.
that
Yeah.
they gave you too on top of that.
And
I
the free
mean,
drink.
That's
Hey,
right.
that was what, $5? for
That's
the
what I'm
drink?
saying.
So that's an infinity percent increase, considering I bet zero and made money. So
What's fascinating?
called it a day.
You always tell these stories of you and Savage on the road, and every single time it's almost like the most hilarious meetup like
Well, he
conversation.
wasn't there with me for this.
I know, but it's
Yeah,
just
right.
like when you're on the road together, like the LSU trip was like, Will, pick me up at the airport. It's really,
And by the end of it, Slay said, give me the keys. I'm sleeping in the car. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm getting another drink. Come on.
I can't tell who's the responsible one and who's not the responsible one when y'all two are on the road
lines are
together.
blurred.
You got something going on, whether it's a fan stadium fight situation or y'all have had a drink situation
Mm-hmm.
or somebody knocking something over with him or you're gambling. There's
Dynamic duo, man.
You guys' road trips need to be documented, man.
Sponsored.
They do.
There were.
Absolutely.
Last year, there were. Yeah.
I'm like,
Documented,
geez.
sponsored, signed, sealed, delivered, all the things. It was fun.
Yeah, either I'm a degenerate like Savage, or I need to be governed like you will whenever y'all go out together. One or the other got to watch each other. We got to figure this thing out. We got to figure this thing out, man, because y'all stories are hilarious together.
Titans made their coordinator hires official last night. Nick Holes, Denard Wilson, OC and DC on Brian Callahan's staff. Coming up in 10 minutes, we're going to get into a discussion on what makes a good position coach a good position coach and how Bill Callahan's experience will help the Titans offensive line specifically, the differences between him and perhaps his predecessors here in Nashville coaching that offensive line that needs a lot of help and guidance and coaching the way Ron Slay, steered me towards making $100.
Greatness
on a
at
free
this
$10.
point.
But we go to the phones right now where Chris is in Hermitage up next. What's up, Chris?
What up, Chris?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. We're happy to have you back. I'm glad you had a good trip and made some money along the way.
Thank you.
I was able to listen to the Buck Rising show for a short bit yesterday, and they posed a really interesting question I wanted to give to y'all, too. It was a would you rather, right, about the Titans next season. And they said, would you rather the Titans have another rough season win-wise, like maybe 4 or 5 games, but Will Levis take a significant step forward and become a much better quarterback that you can clearly see on the field and on game day and such? Or would you rather see the Titans step up as an entire team, win something like 10 or 11 games, but it's like in spite of Will Levis's play, where he's clearly taking a step back. And, the roster got better, but Will Levis is kind of becoming a problem, even though they're winning games. It was a really interesting question. I thought about it for a while, but I just, I want to hear what y'all say because, I value y'all's opinion a lot. Thank
Sure.
y'all. Hang up and listen.
Thank you, Chris.
Great question.
It's a good question. Would you rather Will Levis take a step forward, but your team doesn't? Or would you rather 10 wins, but Will Levis doesn't take a step forward?
Can I start it?
Yeah.
Before we get attacked, I want Will Levis to get better, okay? I don't need anybody saying I'm hating on Will Levis anymore, okay? So I need Will Levis to get better. You remember the call from last week when we were criticized because we were anti-Will Levis? Remember that?
Even though
It's not the case.
none of us are.
But
That was pre-anger at Kentucky losing to Tennessee at Rep Arena again, so it's okay.
Yeah, but besides that, I'd rather see Levis do well because if you have your quarterback and he takes that year 2 jump to me, I'd much rather see that. Now, winning in spite of him means you're going to have to go find another guy. If you don't take that significant jump as a pro going into year 2, then you also find yourself in year 3 trying to figure out why you can't make that jump either. I'm watching a guy in Pittsburgh do somewhat similar things than Kenny Pickett. Like, there was no year 2 jump, so there's big question marks around him. And, of course, decisions got to be made shortly after. I'd much rather see Levis get better and somewhat be steady and knowing that the biggest issue is the talent around you than almost anything. I know 10, 11 wins mean a lot. But if quarterback play matters in the playoffs, and it does, Brock Purdy showed up when you need him to. Patrick Mahomes stepped up when you need him to. I won't mention the team in the AFC North and how that went down. But what I'm saying is this. Quarterback play matters in the playoffs, and if he's getting better, you can continually stack and build around him.
Yeah, that's my whole point. I mean, that's what this league is made up of teams that have good quarterbacks go the furthest, right? And are usually the teams that win you the Super Bowls with those type of caliber quarterbacks. And you're not probably going to be that team, or at least you're not going to be that team consistently like some of these teams have been, like Kansas City, 49ers as of late. You're not going to be that team consistently unless you have a good quarterback. And if Will Levis does not grow next year and is not able to build upon his play this year, I just worry they won't find that with him in the future. So I would say they need to have him take a step forward next year, and that's what I'd want to see the most.
Yeah, I think it's an impossible question because I don't think it's likely. Like, if in this scenario, if Levis gets better but the Titans win 4 games, then what else has gotten so much worse to where your passing game can be that good and you can still be bad? Because if in that scenario, your defensive coordinator, who's a first-time DC, doesn't know what he's doing and your defense looks terrible, I don't think I'm signing up for that either. Because then that tells you, okay, well, who'd this guy hire, Brian Callahan hire to be a first-time defensive coordinator who maybe isn't ready? Or if Will Levis gets better but you're still winning 4 games, how much worse is the offensive line again? How bad are the wide receivers that you still need? Like, I think it's an impossible question to answer because I need to know other info. Because if you're taking a step back, then what broke down that was actually decent this year, or maybe wasn't good this year, but then somehow got worse? I don't think Will Levis's development is the number one priority. I want to learn, is Brian Callahan ready to be a head coach, and are his coordinators and staff members ready to be in the positions that they are in? I'd rather the team be good because they can move on from Will Levis.
Yeah, but
they can pick another guy.
If that's the case, though, Will, you're always going to take a step back. And I feel like this team at this point, because of the poor draft picks, because of the change in person or with the GM and the head coach, you're going to take another step back if you have to go get another quarterback and then develop that quarterback.
It's fine.
So I'm not willing to do that.
Well,
I'd rather see this quarterback develop under a guy like Brian Callahan, who is known for developing quarterbacks in his past.
He's a second-round pick, though. And you have money. 615-737-1045. We'll continue the conversation after the break. We'll also talk about what the difference is between a good or a bad position coach in NFL circles? Coming up next. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up in hour 3 this morning, Austin Price of VolQuest at 8:20. Ron Slay, SEC Network, and 3HL star with a win for Tennessee against Kentucky.
Yeah.
To discuss at 9:20. You guys should have seen me waking up at 6:30 London time to the news that the Vols had once again won in Rupp Arena.
Corrupt Arena.
It's a beautiful sight. Yeah, Corrupt Arena. That's right.
Corrupt Arena, man.
With
What
the
a
Kentuckies.
I'm telling you, what a good grand old time, man. The boys put it down, man. 100+ points up in Lexington. Flexington is what we call it now because we flex every time we in there.
Thompson Bowling Arena North.
Home.
Yeah.
Hey, drop your location.
That's right.
Corrupt Arena.
Rick Barnes is like, another win up here in Lexington.
Let's
Check.
go. He downplayed it so well. I listened to a little bit of our conversation last night on the station, actually, with Bob Kessling. Really good conversation with him on how he challenged those guys too, man. Big time win. He never minimized the fact that DJ Wagner was out too. So I mean, it is what it is. But when you do what you want when you popping, and when you beat people, you put your foot on their necks and you don't let them forget it. So this is for my Kentucky friends. What up, Sean? Ha! Couldn't be my
What up,
basketball
Wes?
school
What's it
team.
like only?
Yeah.
What's it like only scoring double digits in Rupp Arena this year?
Could imagine.
Could not be my team. Well, so we'll get into that coming up in hours 3 and 4 with Austin Price at 8:20 and Ron Slay at 9:20. Want to go back to the conversation we just started earlier and question from a caller about a conversation that apparently Buck was having about would you rather take a step back as a team but have Will Levis take a step forward? And the F&M Bank chat is alive and awake on this one, and you can join them there in Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And a lot of conversation of some people saying, oh, good take by me or bad take by me. What I was trying to say, maybe I did a poor job of explaining it, was I don't really have a take because I can't answer that question. And I think it's fair to say that you need more context without saying, okay, yeah, the Titans are 4 wins and Will Levis gets better. Like, okay, but what else? What other breakdowns were there that allowed you to get 4 wins? Because if you only win 4 games in this league, yes, I know there's going to be a longer rebuild and this thing's not going to get fixed in 1 year, but what else happened to get you to 4 wins? I cannot answer that question.
If Will Levis, so of course on the break, we spoke about it for a quick second and just discussed it too. If Will Levis gets better in year 2, that means the team should get better also. I don't know if there's a quarterback that got better and they actually had a terrible record. Like Jordan Love got better this year. I use him because he's a guy that had to get better from year 1 to year 2, right?
Exactly.
And they got better as a squad. So I do believe one correlates to the other. Now, if you're telling me that Will Levis got better and the offense was forward progressing and his completion rate was up and they scored more points, that means the defense was trash. Essentially on the other side of it too, or the fact that you were playing behind so much that they allowed Will Levis to actually get better. That's the other side of it too. Is a lot of people talk about who was it a few years back? Might have been Jameis. When something was like 4,000 yards, we had 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, something crazy like that, correct? And you look at that and you somewhat say to yourself, well, that's actually not, that's hustling backwards to me. Like, you're probably playing behind in a lot of those games, and a lot of teams do that when you look at the numbers. The numbers don't correlate to what the actual outcome is because I can have 3,500 to 4,000 yards and be an 11-win team, or I can have almost 5,000 and win 4. That means one or the other was lacking as far as that goes, and it's probably the defense, and you don't want that to be the case here. And you can somewhat say in that situation, well, they don't really have the personnel you need right now to win games to keep you in ball games. It's so much that goes into that loaded question and scenario, but I will still say I can live in a world where Will Levis gets better, and if he does get better, that means the team should win more games too.
So CR in the F&M Bank chat, you can always stream along with us and chat with us, says, why can't we do both? And look, I mean, that's what they need to do. And I think that's the big question mark, though, for next year with a brand new staff. Like, you have some personnel that's familiar, including your quarterback, who you hope takes a step forward. Mm-hmm. But I think in this position, you might feel a little more comfortable with the offense moving forward if you get the right pieces. But you have a guy now who is dedicated as an offensive mind, who has developed quarterbacks, who has had success with the offense that he just came from in Cincinnati. And more of the question mark actually is like, what will this defense really look like? Like, Denard Wilson is also a first-time defensive coordinator in this position with kind of a brand new slate, and you don't know as much about him.
Yeah.
You know how he's developed guys, and guys have stood up for him and said he's a great DB coach, but how will he be as a D coordinator, and how will he be able to push this defense to a different place? Because it was okay, right? This defense was okay, but there's a lot of places it needed help in, and that's one thing I'm looking for specifically. Like, what is the defense going to do? We have an idea with Callahan and the offense, but what is this defense going to look like?
Just looking at situations real quick to answer that question as to who got better and what was better for certain teams, right? Brock Purdy got better. They had a better record this year. And on top of his health, okay? Jordan Love got better this year because of his passing, and they had a better record too. Baker Mayfield had his best year statistically, and Tampa got better because of that. So to answer the reality of that question, I don't think you can have one without the other.
I agree.
And just looking at guys that have had these types of seasons, like Sam Howell, I don't think he got better this year. That offense, of course, they may have thrown for a lot of yards and whatnot, but they didn't get better either.
He probably is the example of that, honestly, of Sam Howell, someone and getting better from what, right? Like he only had one start as a rookie, and he was good, but the offensive line was so wretched that now, like I was saying, Washington is in position to get a top 5 pick quarterback. And that is where you would find yourself. If the Titans do win 3 games and Levis is okay, that's why I'm saying at that point you move on and you take the rare opportunity with a top 5 pick to pick a quarterback. Now, that being said,
you're not always guaranteed they're going to be successful, even a top 5 pick.
But you're not guaranteed, though, a top 5 pick for the next 10 years, maybe. Like when you have that opportunity to take a transcendent talent, you take it.
You're also putting yourself backwards.
But how so?
Because you're always going to have to, no matter if these are, okay, CJ Stroud's don't come around all the time, where in their rookie year they step in and they're just dynamite, right? And he could take a step backwards next year. We don't know that. I just feel like if you are going to be okay with Will Levis not developing and then going and being like, well, but we have a top 5 pick next year, we're going to take a quarterback, but that's going to take time to develop. Like, chances are he's not going to come in and take over the NFL. And in my eyes, that then puts you back another year as a franchise because you've already put yourself back. They're already playing catch up with personnel. The quarterback is the end all be all, right? So I just feel like, why would you want to take another step back? You're hoping and praying that Will Levis is going to be that guy.
But if you have 2 years of knowing that Levis is not getting better,
well, at that point,
then if you stay with him, then you are still taking steps back.
Yeah.
Like at that point, you break the glass and you start over.
But you got to give him more than a year.
Right. So then,
You know?
all right, well, let's answer that question then. How long does Will Levis have to prove that he's the guy?
End of year 3. 3 years is usually what it is for me. Always will be 3 years for quarterbacks.
I'm with you on 3.
Always. Because there'll be a huge adjustment for C.J. Stroud next year, too.
Yes.
To me. There's a longer game plan now for him and tendencies that say he's breaking down. And if he continues to progress, you got your guy. It's 3 years. So, in my opinion, I've always been told that. And when you look at how careers were like birth, like let's look at RG3 and what's his name out of the Colts. They came out the same year.
The Colts?
Andrew Luck.
Oh, Andrew Luck.
Luck and RG3. RG3 came in and set the world on fire. Remember Rookie of the Year, if I'm not mistaken? No, was it? No. Yeah, RG3 and Andrew Luck. You look at that 3-year progression, RG3 took a step back, and Andrew Luck went forward. That's what you essentially get. When RG3 was supposed to be the guy to set the world on fire, remember, won the Heisman and all those types of things. It's usually a 3-year track into figuring out what a guy is going to be, unless you're Patrick Mahomes or somebody like that. 3 years is usually the cutoff for me.
I would just rather keep playing the lottery and then see when you hit. I really would. Play the quarterback lottery because to win a Super Bowl in the AFC, you have to go through Patrick Mahomes and you have to have a top 5 quarterback in your conference to beat that guy and play for a Super Bowl. You do whatever it takes to get an elite quarterback. And if you know after 2 years and you were looking at a top 5 pick this time next year that Will Levis isn't improving, then we may be having a different conversation. But again, to the point I made earlier, it is impossible to look with all of these hypotheticals we're saying of like, well, what if they have a top 5 pick? And what if that, like, we don't have enough info yet. I think he's got 2 years also. I agree with both of you that he's got 2 years to prove it. But again, like if we're sitting here and the Titans have a top 5 pick this time next year and Levis is I really think it's going to be possible that this is his season, make or break. And you're having a Levis scenario where you're getting a guy to compete with him. Top tier in the F&M Bank chat on YouTube says Steelers would be the example of a team that maybe got better or at least stayed consistent and their quarterback didn't get better.
Yeah.
And Kenny Pickett is the outlier to that.
Yeah. That's something that I see for sure. Absolutely see that being the case, where they had to have a backup Mason come in and actually play better. And Kenny Pickett was in a situation this year where he was actually healthy going into the playoffs, and they didn't start him because of the quarterback play and stuff like that. And there's another situation out there. Another situation where you can correlate one from the other too, where quarterback play got worse and the team did too. 2022 Seattle Seahawks. You got Geno, right? Geno having a year where he had 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. This year he went down. Percentage did also. Last year in 2022 it was 69.8% on the year. This year it was 64.7%. Still decent, but his yards went down, his average went down, his touchdowns went down, and of course, the interception was 2 less, but he also threw for less also. So his situation where his play went down and so did the team record too. I do think one correlates to the other. If Will Levis is getting better, I think the record should be better too.
Yep.
615-737-1045, our number. Let's go to the phones where Chris is in Clarksville up next. What's up, Chris?
Good morning, guys. Happy Super Bowl week. How we doing?
Thank you.
You too.
Good.
Good morning.
Hey, awesome. So, I know a lot of there's been some discourse about like what the Titans should do with their draft, like whether now they should maybe potentially go with an offensive tackle like we all thought, or maybe potentially consider like a wide receiver with their first pick. But and just for clarification, I'm still on team offensive tackle with their first pick. But as far as wide receiver goes, I know a lot of people are wanting T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans. Like those are the big guys in free agency. But I just want to ask, like, what would you guys think about like a wide receiver room? Like you got D-Hop coming back, and then you could potentially get a guy like Curtis Samuel on a 2 or 3 year deal, like on the cheaper end compared to other guys. He's only 27 right now, going to be 28 at the beginning of the season, and he's like a Swiss Army knife on offense. And then you can get yourself a guy like A.D. Mitchell from Texas in the second round, who reminds me a little bit of T. Higgins coming out when he came out of Clemson in 2020, and or maybe Xavier Legette from South Carolina. I mean, he's got a similar build to A.J. Brown. I know like a lot of Titans fans miss him, or maybe his play, the impact that he had on this offense. But he reminds me a lot of him, just his build. But he has a second gear to him as well. So I just want to see like what you guys think of a wide receiver group that would look like that for the Titans.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the call.
They're expecting, I'm looking at some stuff, Xavier Legette to run a 4.3 at 6'1", 220-ish.
Decent.
That's, God, you want to talk about a blazer. I like Legette. He was dealing with somewhat, I think they said, disclosed after the game, a calf injury while down at the Senior Bowl, but he looked like he had everything that you need in a receiver. Kayla and I had that conversation yesterday. Tackle or receiver. Tackle or receiver, and you dealing with a coach in Brian Callahan that had to make the decision with Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell a few years back. And both teams won, but that is a portion where you ask, what do you want, quickness or do you want protection first? And I somewhat believe you can scheme up protection if Brian Callahan is as good as he say he is with his game planning and protecting the quarterback. I don't know what it's going to look like. We're going to see what free agency does first, because they might sign a tackle this year, or NPF may be healthy from his pec or bicep injury that he had earlier this year too.
Yeah, and there are free agents out there in terms of wide receivers. I think you have to draft one. I really do. And I think you can get one in the second round for pretty good value. But there are also guys out there in free agency. He mentioned Curtis Samuel. And look, he's dealt with some injuries too throughout his career. I like Curtis Samuel. I just don't know how reliable he would be. But there's plenty of guys out there right now that if you just wanted to add to that room, because you have DeAndre Hopkins, you're hoping with Callahan you could see some Treylon Burks development if he stays healthy. But that's always a big if.
Always a big if.
The wide receiver he mentioned from Texas, anybody but Will, Adonai Mitchell, where is he from?
Antioch.
Dang, Ramon. Look at the big brain on Moan.
Antioch High School.
Don't hold this dude back. Oh, now he's Millie Rock. Yeah, I wish your
Oh,
camera would
Andy
freeze
Block.
again.
I know. I wanted it to freeze on that part specifically.
Yep.
No, we talked about that a little bit yesterday.
Bring him home.
Yeah, they got dropped off to us yesterday. So I was in. Did you know that?
Yeah.
You did? Lies.
Yes,
Put
I
your
did.
hands up.
I do think if one of the top 2 tackles is available at number 7, then that's your pick. But again, there's a lot we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's why it's hard doing the mock draft conversation. And I shudder every time I see a mock draft posted before the March, before free agency, because
free agency.
it's just pointless. It's
Can I-
totally pointless.
Can I make you guys feel a little smarter, though?
Oh.
Yesterday, I was doing a little draft prep, looking through prospects, trying to learn a little bit about the landscape. And I saw me and Ramon's dude, JPJ, out of Oregon. I was looking at where everybody's from, and I see UT. I was like, oh, he's from Tennessee. He's from Draper. Where is Draper at? And I look, and UT is Utah.
Yes,
you
it is.
dumbass.
That's correct.
I was like, man, we got
Nice
all
job.
these dudes from Tennessee, man. We got to bring them back. UT is not Tennessee. And,
That's
state
big boy.
shorthand.
80 Mitchell's Cane Ridge. That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah. By the way, we keep
Jet
talking
lag.
about Jackson Powers Johnson. His stock gonna go up just through the radio.
You gonna speak him into existence here?
He gonna be late first round. At this point.
I would happily sign up for the first 2 picks to be offensive lineman.
He
Ooh,
is
center
ugly.
tackle.
God, I love that.
He
dude.
got a blockhead,
Great.
don't he?
Just like like them blue bricks from Mario that slam into the ground. A head like a plank. A head like a daggum hammerhead.
So Daniel Jeremiah put this out. NFL Network analysts tweeted this out last night and said, if you need to remake your offensive line, this draft is going to provide that opportunity. Talent and depth is there to make a major impact next year. Sign me up.
Yeah, give me all the O linemen. Let's
Bring
just create a,
me-
a
Oh,
huge
now
new
we all
O-line.
love old linemen,
Hey,
huh?
Oh, this
okay,
show is
first of
pro.
all, yeah.
Go to break.
We didn't have options since I entered this
615-737-1045.
building on this show.
We're not doing this.
I had no option but to like offensive linemen. Put that on record.
More calls next. RKW 1045 The Zone. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up in hour 3, Austin Price of VolQuest will stop by. Joining us at 8:20 this morning, Ron Slay of SEC Network and 3HL. With the Joe Hunk cadence on that one. 3HL. 615-737-1045. Playing Toby Keith all morning long. Gone too soon at the young age of 62.
62.
Yeah.
Good.
Sad news to wake up to this morning. Let's go to Mike in Cleveland. 615-737-1045. What's up, Mike? Thank you, sir.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, on this beautiful Tuesday morning. Got the sun shining, you did.
Yes, sir.
But yeah. Yo, I wanted to, welcome back, Will. Happy that you made it.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Your absence was not missed, okay? But now, but yo, bro.
Sound like all my friends. Huh. Did y'all coordinate this?
That's right. That's right,
Okay.
man. Only your friends get you like that.
I know.
But yo, I wanted to comment on this Levis talk. The main thing I'm looking at with the Titans, man, coming into the season, honestly, is consistency. And I mean, we can look at Levis. Is he consistently getting better? As the season goes along, is that offense, getting better as the season goes along? Because we don't really know what to expect. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
We can look at what Brian Callahan has did, or maybe guess what the offense is going to look like. But remember, he said that he schemes week to week. So, I mean, with saying that, what pieces is he going to have that he can count on week to week? And so as far as what Levis go, just consistency, week after week. Is he getting better? You know what I'm saying? I think ultimately Levis has to look in the mirror and say, what's next for me? Is he searching? Is he searching for a better him? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And just see if he gets there. Because, sometimes you just got to ask yourself, what's next for me? And if you look for a song that says that, you can find me on Spotify and Apple Music.
there it
What's
is.
next for me?
Freaking know it.
Yep.
I know it.
There it is.
Get by. Beat it.
He's getting better at getting it in because he's like
Menace
real
to
quick.
society. Pause. Honestly, in not to disparage Buck, which we do enjoy doing on this show jokingly, and I'm not trying to seriously do it this time, but again, how many teams, like Ramon said, have a quarterback that gets better and the team gets worse, or vice versa, or the team gets better and the quarterback gets worse? It's not likely.
Not more times. I love the conversation, though, because it's going to be a lot of this is going to be formulated around Levis and also Callahan, too. The question I have, and Kayla and I have talked about this, Will, and I want to ask you this, too, because I think it's a fair question. How much of these players' development as far as O-line with Bill Callahan, right? As far as the quarterback play with Brian Callahan, as far as linebacker play that we've heard with Frank Bush, how much are we excluding the coaches on the basis of the players getting better? Because this is a good staff so far that we've heard about. If the O-line doesn't get better, do you blame the product or do you blame the coach? If Will Levis doesn't get better with what Peyton has said about him or what Burrow has said about him, all these quarterbacks have said about Callahan, and both of them. Let's just go with those two groups. If they don't get better, who do we blame? The player or the coaches at this point? Because if we deem these dudes to be that good, then it's got to be they got to get better.
I think you got to have context again. Like, which players? If Peter Skoronski isn't getting better, that's different from if Aaron Brewer is back and Aaron Brewer isn't getting better, right?
Okay.
Like, you have caveats to that of different players have different paths of development, and that development is not linear. However, Peter Skoronski needs to take a big step forward because the onus is on him as a first-round draft pick, a top 15 pick, to show us in year 2 that he's learned from what didn't work as a rookie. He can stay healthy, and he can take coaching from one of the offensive line gurus in the league and show us a better product, specifically in pass protection.
Right.
However, if you take a chance on somebody on a 1-year deal or bring in Mike Onwenu from New England, right? Like, there are different levels of expectations for different players. So I have a hard time just saying, okay, well, is it the player's fault or the coach's fault? I think the question we can ask, though, guys, is how much grace period does this staff get to rebuild this thing?
Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I really don't. I think next year, like, we're so excited, and this is fresh, and this is new, and these fans should be excited. But let's be realistic about next year in particular, right? For the first time, all these staff members coming together, first time for a lot of these guys as coordinators or head coach. Personnel is going to be new. A lot of this roster will have turnover from the last season. So be gracious, have grace, I should say, about next season. They need to improve. Heck yeah, in many departments, but don't expect them to be immediately a playoff team or a team that's going to the Super Bowl, right? I think that's fair.
I think there is a larger discussion to be had once the team is built again of what is the expectation, what is considered positive for Brian Callahan. And that is a conversation that I will refuse to have until there's a football team that wears Titans colors that has been assembled. Because right now, you got a lot of money, you don't have a lot of football players. Mm-hmm. Hard to really have any of these conversations without knowing who the free agents are and who the draft picks are. But it is a genuine conversation, certainly. 615-737-1045. We'll do our staff discussion, see if we can get that in later in the show, or can also push that to be a larger discussion tomorrow, because I am interested, Ramon, from the player's perspective, how quickly you can tell if you've got a good position coach or a bad one, or just what separates the good from the bad. Because from people you've named on the air or not named on the air, I know you have experience with good and bad coaches.
Yeah, definitely.
One of them may have, a certain ACC team that he's in charge of right now.
He's gotten better, they say. They say.
Coach Fulmer's going to call in immediately and tell you to move on if I don't shut up. So let's get to hour 3, second half of the show coming up next. Austin Price will join us at 8:20. Some interesting things from Diana Rossini on Mike Vrabel. The exact quote, the context around it, and the added information that Diana has written this morning on Twitter about a quote about why Mike Vrabel is not a head coach this cycle that has been making the rounds on social media. Our reaction next.
8 o'clock. What's going on? Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Super Bowl week continues, and we get an injury update from Chiefs guard Joe Thuney. In an interview, he said his status is up in the air for this week of practice, taking it a day at a time, still trying to find his way onto the field for the Super Bowl. Roger Goodell spoke to the media yesterday and announced the NFL will play its first ever game in Brazil next season. Also announced that the Eagles would be one of the teams competing. We do not know the kickoff time or the other team yet. That will be announced closer to the start of the season. And the Giants found their defensive coordinator yesterday. It is former Tennessee DC Shane Bowen. The Giants last interviewed Bowen on January 12th, took their time to find the right fit at defensive coordinator, and now have effectively replaced former DC Wink Martindale. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show starts right now on RKW, brewed by 8th and Roast, 8 a.m. in Music City, and lots to discuss out of Knoxville. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Joining us this morning, he is VolQuest's Austin Price, joining us a little early this morning as we talk Tennessee versus NCAA, a Tennessee Junior Day, and a big win in Rupp Arena over the weekend. What's up, Austin? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you all?
Good.
Good morning.
We are great. Austin, since the initial report and since the ink has dried on lawsuits and on lots of discussion around Tennessee versus the NCAA, what do we feel like we have learned over the last week? What is the latest on how people around campus feel about their very public fight with the NCAA?
Well, I think Tennessee feels, quietly confident just based off the fact they know kind of, what they're being charged with. They know what the evidence says, and they feel quietly confident. And again, anytime you enter into one of these investigations or enter into a lawsuit, even though it's not the University of Tennessee against the NCAA right now, it's the state of Tennessee. It's not a lock on either side, and so. But I think Tennessee feels good about what they have, and, as far as the knowledge of everything. And that's why they came out swinging so hard, last week. So, we've learned that, this thing will probably not be a super quick process, but we should start finding out a little bit of stuff, I think later today, whether the federal judge in Greenville, is going to grant the temporary restraining order, for, the next at least 6 days, which would be a good sign for Tennessee if they do.
And Austin, at this
not an end all be all if they don't, though.
Right.
Not an end all be all if they don't.
Right.
Because the judge could elect to just say, I'm not going to rule. I want to hear both sides of this argument next Tuesday, which, again, it's still set up to happen regardless.
And next Tuesday, if you will, Austin, just walk us through exactly what that is and what will be happening in Greenville, because I feel like there's so much red tape around this and so many opinions and so many details to keep up with. What specifically does Tennessee hope to get out of next Tuesday?
Well, obviously they hope to get a favorable ruling. Don't even think you'll necessarily get a ruling next Tuesday. What I think you'll see is you'll see the state attorney general for Tennessee and for Virginia state their case, in word form and not just, written, complaint. And then, of course, you'll see the lawyers for the NCAA try to defend their stance. But I do not think next Tuesday you will see Danny White take the stand or Jackson Lampley or James Clausen. I think this will mostly be just, kind of state your case as to why you feel, for both sides.
When you look at this situation as far as the way the NCAA is judging this NIL, is this a conversation where the NCAA is in all 50 states should have at least had a conversation with state legislature as far as who allowed these NILs to be paid out to high school kids?
Yeah, 100%, Ramon. When you think about every state's got different laws, right? And the thing about the NCAA's response and the Tennessee's subsequent answer is it feels like the NCAA either is misreading Tennessee state law or misrepresenting Tennessee state law, and that's why you saw the Attorney General come out and kind of have his tongue-in-cheek comment that I guess the NCAA knows more about the Tennessee law than I do. So they let this get down the road too far. Listen, there's a lot of things that, about the current state of college athletics that I don't necessarily agree with. I hate the two-time transfer. You all heard me complain about that. But at the same time, the NCAA is their record against, opponents in court the last little bit looks like the Washington Generals against the Globetrotters. Like, it's not been real good. And so, is it different this time? Maybe. We'll see. I think that, again, there's no certainties, but at the same time, you have to feel good about kind of where Tennessee's stance is on a lot of this. I think Tennessee feels quietly confident, but at the same time, cautious heading into, this battle. Again, this is the lawsuit, for the state against the NCAA. Tennessee's yet to receive the notice of allegations. We'll see if they do. I guess the NCAA could always pivot and go, we were never going to send it. You all sued us. State of Tennessee sued us. They can kind of walk it back. But, Tennessee's had the draft of the notice of allegations, which is what they normally send before they actually send it. Now, there have been precedents where they don't send it, even though they send a draft. So we'll see if it happens. If that happens, I think that's when you see the university sue potentially, or, Spire sue potentially. Again, a lot of this depends on kind of how the next steps go. But this initial deal with the state AG's office is more to protect, high school athletes, from entering into bad NIL deals, which there's been several that have been, put themselves in some weird spots.
In a world that doesn't seem like they know how to operate as far as the NCAA, what took them so long to get to this point? Was it collection of information? Was it, hey, somebody's in the air saying, you guys need to do something? Because it seems like a little too late with where they are and trying to regulate it now. So, Austin, what took so long? And I know they take a lot of time with just anything. People wanted to transfer and years pass and stuff like that. Why so long?
That's a great question, Ramon. Why did they think it wasn't going to be a big deal? Like, everybody knew it was going to happen in some form or fashion. Now, maybe not to this degree, right? I'm not sure anybody had collectives as something that they predicted, 4 or 5 years ago when a lot of the stuff about name, image, and likeness started to be talked about before the Supreme Court ruled. But they knew that this would be a game changer. And I think they just kind of turned a blind eye to it. Like, I don't know if they did it on purpose, wanting this outcome. I don't know if they did it just being ignorant to what is reality. You saw one of the responses, stating, the NCAA governs in a world that doesn't exist. There's a lot of reality in that. Like what they're talking about isn't reality a lot of times. And so, just interesting to kind of, see it all unfold. But I couldn't tell you why that they kind of let the toothpaste get out of the tube without having any kind of regulation at all. Like, the rules constantly changing. They moved the goalposts multiple times since this started. And, I just can't really explain kind of the thought process.
Austin Price of AllQuest, kind enough to join us this morning on RKW. And amongst all this, Tennessee football is still moving and grooving, right? It's a business every single day. Talk about this last weekend and Junior Day and what kind of that held in terms of some of the big names.
Well, you had, Ensworth, to keep it Nashville located, you had Ensworth defensive lineman Ethan Utley in town, and Tennessee's done a really nice job there. Great kid, really good player. Just got to kind of hang out with Coach Garner, hang out with Coach Heupel, and just spend time. He's been up here a bunch. So it was the visit was more about, relationships than it was football. They didn't do a whole lot of talking about, technique and, what he does well and what he can continue to do better. They did a lot of talking about, just what life is like at Tennessee, what life is like for him currently, just kind of building a bond with him. Tennessee also did a really nice job with Jalen Matthews, the offensive tackle out of the state of New Jersey, Joakim Dodson, wide receiver out of Collierville, out in Memphis. Tennessee is in a really good spot there as we exit the weekend. And so a really productive junior day with both 2025s, which is the current class we're on now, and then 2026s, guys like Leo Delaney from Providence Day over in Charlotte, all in town this past weekend.
I think it's also, we've talked about this on the show, important that when these guys commit, they're seeing the success of Tennessee athletics as a whole, right? And you look at what Rick Barnes is doing with this basketball team this year up in Kentucky. Rick Barnes being able to get his 4th win in Rupp Arena since taking over this Vols program. Just how big was that win, especially bouncing back from a night in terms of the South Carolina loss at home there in Tennessee?
Well, it was a massive bounce back. You don't want to say it was a must-win, but in certain ways it kind of was. I mean, Tennessee comes home for LSU now, but then they go right back on the road to A&M and Arkansas. Anytime you go on the road, no matter what the team's record is in this league, it's not a given, and things get tougher. And so to be able to go on the road to Rupp, put up 103, do something that a team that's not done in Rupp since the late 80s, early 90s. Kind of take the air out of the balloon up there and kind of have it emptying out there with a few minutes to go. I mean, that's a big deal for this basketball team. And again, the South Carolina game, I think, was a wake-up call for them, and they responded accordingly. You go from, Dalton Connect scoring 31 of 59, so more than half, to Dalton Connect scoring 16 of 103, and you had 26 from Ziegler, 26 from Josiah Jordan-James. Santi had a nice game. I mean, it was a total team effort, and I think that's going to spell, maybe a turn the corner moment for this team. Again, they've got LSU at home coming up, on Wednesday, and then they go on the road to A&M and then to Arkansas.
Austin Price of VolQuest, our guest Tuesdays here on RKW. Austin, quickly on the way out, I know people always watching the coaching carousel in college football, and the calendar just doesn't exist anymore, right? And there can still be changes after recruiting classes are signed, and still be changes in staffs and things of that nature, and times where that maybe didn't used to be the case in college football. Do you think Tennessee's current staff stays the way it is going into next season, or is there a chance of movement anywhere on that staff of guys that could still go elsewhere?
Well, I mean, I think the NFL teams, because there's always movement, that always is a possibility, right? Like, could they come and take a swing at a Brian Jean-Marie or Jerry Mack or whoever? Absolutely. At this time, though, I don't see any movement. Now, Auburn doesn't have a defensive line coach. A lot of people have asked about Rodney Garner. I believe, people at Auburn have reached out to Rodney Garner, but at this time, I do not believe he will leave. Now that is his alma mater, so that they keep swinging. I mean, you never say never, but I don't believe at this time, as we sit here on Tuesday morning at 8:14 your time, that's kind of headed that direction. I think Rodney has been in the office, he's been in meetings, he's been watching, winter workouts. He has been every bit a part of Tennessee football, and to me, like right now, I just don't see him leaving. So at this point, I do not see any changes.
Gotcha.
That's the OG right there. That guy can hold court better than about 99% in college football, as Ramon Foster, and I'm sure you know as well, Austin. That's for sure.
Yes.
Certainly. Austin,
he's headed for a second knee replacement on Thursday. So, again, he had one done last year. Got the left knee coming up on Thursday. So,
goodness sakes,
it'll be a cantankerous Rod.
Fair enough. Even more than usual. Austin Price, our guest Tuesdays at RKW. Austin, thank you.
Thanks, Austin.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
There he is, Austin Price of VolQuest. Some good news there for Vols fans we can react to next, plus the conversation about Mike Vrabel and his size hurting his chances of being a head coach. I can't say it with a straight face. Next.
Valentine's is coming. Are you looking for the most thoughtful, most romantic gift for the one you love this Valentine's? 2 words for y'all, okay? Genesis Diamonds. Maybe it's a simple pendant or an exquisite, one-of-a-kind designer ring. Genesis can help you pick out the most memorable and special piece of jewelry for the occasion. And to make it even sweeter, now until Valentine's, whether you spend $199 or $199,000, Genesis will give you some chocolates, fresh flowers, and dinner out at no charge. This is a great deal, okay? It's a one-stop shop for the ultimate Valentine's experience. When you buy any piece of beautiful jewelry, they will give you some beautiful flowers from Jenny's Florist, some yummy chocolates, and a gift card for dinner at ST Cake Steakhouse. So stop wasting time. Get to Genesis Diamonds. They've got a spectacular collection of memorable romantic gifts from $199 to $199,000, all right? And right now, they're going to throw in some chocolates, flowers, and dinner out at no extra charge. Happy Valentine's Day from Genesis Diamonds. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. It is a great day to drink any beverage out of a red Solo cup. In honor of this man, Toby Keith, who passed away last night, the age of 62. It's still really sad.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of my favorite songs, country music songs growing up. Right
That's
here.
a good one.
Right here.
Couple of redneck. Well, all right, I'm going to stop before I get really started on this. 615-737-1045 is our number. Titans making staff hires official yesterday for their staff, Nick Holtz, as well as Denard Wilson, offensive and defensive coordinators. Austin Price of AllQuest telling us a few minutes ago that Roddy Garner is someone who is the target of his alma mater at Auburn, and Hugh Freeze trying to bring him there to be their defensive line coach. Interesting, Austin telling us just a few minutes ago he does not expect that to materialize.
Yeah.
Thinks that he has been reached out to and said, "No, I'm good."
Well, that's a good thing for the Vols.
It is a great thing
great
for
thing,
the Vols. For
Absolutely.
Sure.
Ooh. I didn't realize Auburn was his alma mater, you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's had a couple of stints at both. He has been everywhere in the SEC. He's been at Georgia. He's been at Auburn. He's been at Tennessee now twice.
Wow.
Including, I want to say, Ramon on the national championship staff.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's also to my point. We were speaking about while you're out looking at some of these hires that the Titans have made. Just like Tyke Tober's been a career wide receivers coach, and you have Frank Bush being a career linebacker coach, and all these types of things. Like when you're a specialty at those coaching positions for such a long time, like a Rodney Gardner in college, you will be highly sought after, and that's super significant.
So I lied. He left Tennessee in 97.
Okay.
He was tight ends and offensive tackles coach in 97. And then 98 to 04 at Georgia. He was at Georgia from 98 to 2012, 2013 to 2020 at Auburn. He's been at Tennessee ever since.
Okay.
Been a part of 6 SEC championship teams.
God, dog.
That's big.
From Leeds, Alabama as well. So he is a good example of a conversation we were going to have anyway this morning about the Titans. And honestly, it's a perfect segue from Rodney Garner, an old school kind of teacher who was quoted word for word a year ago, I believe, saying, "I tell my guys that there's 3 things in the world that don't lie. The Bible, the mirror, and film." And if that's not the most football guy quote you've ever heard, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, I don't want to be right.
But that question comes up about what separates a good position coach and a good staff member from a bad one. Ramon played 5 years at Tennessee, 11 years in Pittsburgh. You have seen some good position coaches, some good staff members. You've probably seen some bad staff members. What is the biggest difference between a good and a bad hire on a staff?
The bad ones, I'll go there first because they're more polarizing and you see them, even though people can love them on the outside looking in. The bad ones are unsure of themselves, meaning they're always looking over their shoulder, trying to figure out if somebody's trying to get them or if if they think they are good enough. And they are already, but they don't know that they are. They only have one way of doing stuff, meaning that they try to fit everybody into the same box as to not realizing, hey, this guy is 6'2", this guy is 6'6", this guy is 6'7". Or, hey, this wide receiver is 6'2". You got a 5'10" guy that's fast. The 6'2" guy is not as quick as him. So understanding how to put people in the best situations. Bad coaches don't know how to do that. Hey, this is my way. We're going to do it this way. I've always done it this way. Hearing I've always done it this way is probably one of the most egregious red flags I think you can ever have, because you have to evolve and change in those type of situations right there. Knowing your personnel is what anybody will absolutely tell you. Knowing how to fuss at one guy and just talk to the other. Bad coaches don't know how to do one or the other. They just try to make you fit into their box and do it their way because they've been empowered by somebody that they think that it's only right, or not having your own template too. It's, hey, whatever coach want. No, sometimes, coach, I'm going to push back on you. Good leaders also push back. Good leaders know how to listen at times, too. And the good coaches that I have been around, listen to their players. They understand their players. They're flexible while also having their standards in place, right? And it's also, at the end of the day, the respect. Bad coaches lose respect quick. You make the players somewhat huddle up and talk about you when you're a bad leader. And players sniff that out super fast. Now, there's one place that has worked at, and it's been documented in the conversation. They said Coach Belichick and his staff, when they were winning those championships, set up a system in which they, I ain't going to say dogged out the players, but they made it hard for guys. So that if you make it hard for guys, you bring them closer together and to win in spite of. Mm-hmm. And that can only work if you have that type of team and those type of players that understand that type of stuff. But in the majority of NFL and college rooms, when it comes down to good coaches, they listen. They understand my body type ain't Will's body type. They understand Will's mindset isn't Kayla's mindset. And you need to formulate a plan to be able to allow your guys flourish for what's best for them. I heard Coach Holly speaking last night about the Lady Vols, right? And she brought up the fact that if Pat Summit told her, hey, Holly, you got to go 3 up and 3 right, that she had to do that. But Shamika, hey, she's just going to move how she needs to and still get the job done. It's understanding that, listen, as long as my guys or my girls get the job done at the end of the day, that's what matters. Now, yes, my technique is always going to be taught. Our system and level of playing is always going to be something that we have to reach. But when it comes down to doing your job, I'm okay and confident enough in my room and in my players that I can allow certain stuff. We had Wes bring that up on our show. Certain exceptions have to be made on a team.
Wesley Woodyard.
Woodyard.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Certain exceptions have to be made on a team for a guy that may actually work for you. It might not be the prettiest. He might be soft as far as tackling. I don't want to say soft. He might not want to be one of the guys that want to put his face in the fan all the time. But he can get a roll somebody to death. Or he can hold you up enough to where the rest of the team shows up, right? He ain't the toughest, but he's fast. He's a ball hawk. Why do I need him to tackle if he's getting me 6 interceptions a year? You know what I'm saying? It's that type of stuff and understanding there are exceptions that are made on every team. And the bad coaches, they don't like exceptions. They think everybody's supposed to just fall under your dictatorship. And that's not how good coaches operate.
Another thing that I took from that Wesley Woodyard interview in terms of a head coach maybe not allowing his position coaches or his coordinators to actually do their jobs. Like, I think one thing he pointed out with Mike Vrabel, and I'm just taking this a step further back and saying I think it also starts with having a head coach who is going to allow you to do your job as a coordinator, as a position coach, and not maybe always be in hovering or be in trying to put in your input, to have trust in that coordinator so that coordinator can therefore trust in themselves, because you said that's a big part of it. They have to have confidence in what they are doing in teaching their position and teaching their players. And I think that was really important to note, like you said, Ramon. And one thing that I look at too is every coordinator has a different story. So Mary Kay Cabot told us about Bill Callahan yesterday. And a story that stood out to me was DeJuan Jones, the rookie offensive tackle that came in last year, wasn't maybe predicted to be a starter, ended up starting as Jack Conklin got hurt. Jack Conklin is different from who DeJuan Jones is as a player. And Bill Callahan was able to relate to each player and know what they really needed out of it to get the most out of that guy. And DeJuan Jones needed a little tough love at some points. And she said that. Yeah. And he needed to take a little bit more out of him, but he knew how to do it in a way where he wasn't demoralizing or, putting this guy in terms of a place where he has a lack of confidence. He actually shined after those hard teaching moments. And I think that's important to note too, is knowing how to relate to different players, maybe getting the most out of them or giving them a little time to, if they're a veteran, take some time off for their body. I think that's important too, as you are a coordinator and finding success.
So for Peter Skoronski, working with Bill Callahan, what is the first thing that he will try to teach Peter where he can specifically improve going into year 2?
A consistency of technique.
Okay.
That's one thing that Mary Kay Cabot brought up with us. That's another thing we can correlate Bill Callahan to Mike Munchak. Will, Kayla, every single day. Consistency of technique. Now that technique has a box that you fit in, but it allows you to free range. Case in point, I was more of a grabber. Like, I wasn't a puncher. Like, I can punch the heck out of somebody, but my arms went a little bit wide. Or
take that out of context.
my arms went a little bit wider than most coaches would like. But because of my size, I was able to absorb a punch. I was able to absorb somebody rushing me and also grab them and then bring my elbows in as far as blocking. Towards the guy I worked on the other side with, David DeCastro, wasn't a bigger dude, but he had to utilize his punch. So his was, but here's the other thing too. He would sit at the line of scrimmage to start his fight. I would set back a little bit to start mine. But as far as everybody staying square, always going to be huge. Understanding his technique and consistency of it day by day, because that's what's going to save him.
I think it's interesting when it comes to a new position coach coming in as well. How much do you guys think Bill Callahan is looking at college prospects and having his voice heard in that room as the Titans draft offensive linemen?
He is. And that's another thing she mentioned. I asked specifically about Peter Skoronski and just some of these guys where they've been so versatile, they don't really have a spot right now on this line because they've been moved around so much. But even with the question about Skoronski possibly getting a look at the tackle position where he was drafted as technically a tackle, right? And she said, I 100% think they need to take Bill Callahan's input in this when it comes to even changing around the line if it needs to be changed or certain guys they're looking for in the draft. And I think she's right. I think with the years of experience and the resume and the numbers and all that stuff, you've got to take Bill Callahan's input. Not all of it, but when it comes to the line, he is the specialist.
Yeah.
I think that's the interesting part of this is that's maybe the wild card or the plan C, not to say that it's the third choice. But is there a scenario where the Titans don't have to draft a left tackle at all because Peter Skoronski becomes the left tackle? And Bill Callahan feels like, no, I can work with this. And I think that's where I specifically love the Bill Callahan hire because Bill Callahan is altering a 15-year career, a 12-year career of specific players within this league, some of whom have not even been drafted yet. And beyond just the teaching, Bill Callahan signing off on Joe Alt or Fashanu or Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon at center, like that input just in those players specifically is what intrigues me. And understanding, let's not only develop the guys we have, let's pick the right ones to invest in moving forward in the future, even if that means moving Peter Skoronski to left tackle.
It is going to be fascinating to hear his insight and input on that and actually see the moves being made in OTAs because that's where a lot of those changes and trial runs are going to have to happen also. But again, I'll look up in a second and see what Jedrick Wills, the left tackle for the Cleveland Browns, and Peter Skoronski measurables look like. Because Jedrick, I don't think is a big guy. I think they're very much comparable, and he's a franchise left tackle. Me personally, I don't love the conversation of moving him to left tackle, but I will have that conversation just to get some understanding that he may be the best prospect to play left tackle. That's simply how I feel about it. You put your best five out there, and if your best five are capable of being that good with him at left, then we got a good competition to be had. And again, I was saying, we talked about it yesterday with NPF, Nicholas Petit-Frere, playing left tackle. Yeah. I don't know what that's going to look like. Dylan Radin's playing left tackle. Like, there's a lot to be said if we believe Bill Callahan is a guy that can coach these dudes up.
So the difference in arm length for Jedrick Wills and Peter Skoronski, 34.5 for Wills, 32.25.
Yeah.
2 inches.
For Skoronski.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is.
If that is a determining factor.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's all that that's the really determining factor we've heard, at least from the old staff, right?
Yeah.
That's mostly what we've heard.
Well, we've heard that from almost everybody. And to be also brought out that Brian Callahan, your new head coach, in a post interview said that he thought he was a guard.
I think the thing that I hear from what you are saying about position coaches is that insecurities are the biggest factor between a guy being a good or bad position coach. If you make it to the National Football League and you get to that point, odds are you probably know football decently well, right?
Yeah.
Like the difference in football knowledge and specific teaching points from the worst to the best offensive line coaches in the NFL is probably, I would argue, not that different.
It ain't. It's just a small-minded.
But the way you communicate that, I would imagine there's a big difference.
It is, Will. Even on game day.
Yeah.
And we've heard the same thing about Coach Cal. On game day, you do your thing. Like,
Right.
by the time we got to Sunday, Munch said nothing. You know why? Because he was confident in his teaching and what the baseline that he gave us to work with. And so on Sundays, Will, it was just like, all right, you guys go do your thing. Now, it'd be a little small stuff we were struggling to begin the game with that mentally, you know what I'm saying, where they can get you to tick. He just come over there with his pad in his hand and say, hey, you guys going to show up today?
Yeah.
Imagine that. Right? You know what I'm
sure.
saying? When you know you're that good, it's simple. You guys going to show up today?
The thing I will say is that if Mike Vrabel had hired one of his high school friends to be a coordinator, we would all be crushing him for it. And granted, Brian Callahan, having never assembled a staff, has earned and deserves the benefit of the doubt. I am not saying that I think he made the wrong hire in Nick Holtz to come over as offensive coordinator, especially when, look, I mean, Brian Callahan's the OC of this team and calling plays and doing a lot of those things. And I think it's valuable to have someone who knows your language and knows that there's a trust factor between the two of them there. But I think we do have to remember that every coach in this league hires their friends. We just need to hope their friends are good at coaching football.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Vrabel didn't learn from is you can coach or have your friends on staff, but if it doesn't work out and it's not getting better and things are digressing, just to promote your next friend, like that's not the way to do it. And I think sometimes in situations with coordinators specifically, it didn't work out, and then you just saw another one of those guys that are friends with be promoted.
Yep.
615-737-1045. Your phone calls on this coming up next on your thoughts. What jumps out the most from the Titans staff hires that have been made official? Plus Shane Bowen, speaking of staffs, coordinators, he found a home in New York yesterday. We'll give you the details next. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Talking about the Titans. Bum, bum, bum. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, Will Bowling with you. Headlines in 15 minutes, plus what Austin Price had to say about an SEC program that's trying to poach a key Vols assistant. Some interesting things.
Yeah.
And what Austin had to say about it. We'll do that coming up here in just about 15 minutes. Mary Kay Cabot met with you guys yesterday. Was sorry to miss that conversation about the conversation around Bill Callahan and the impact he can have on this Titans offensive line. We spoke in the last segment about what differentiates a good and a bad position coach. Mary Kay Cabot telling us that the good from Bill was his ability to get backups ready to play this year.
Well, let me first start with rookie right tackle DeJuan Jones. I will tell you what, I watched DeJuan Jones actually throw up on his first day of rookie minicamp. It was an overwhelming day for him. He wasn't pacing himself well, and he really struggled to get through that practice. And, Bill Callahan, he got him through that as best he could, but he kept being hard on him. I mean, he was really, he didn't let up. And, then we got to the Greenbrier for, the first 10 days of training camp. And the same thing with DeJuan. Bill Callahan was, riding him hard. He's demanding on these guys. And DeJuan at one point threw his helmet down and in frustration. Well, by the time he had to start, which was the third week of the season, because Jack Conklin went down, who you guys know well as well, went down with a knee injury, DeJuan had to be pressed into service. Now, this is a large human being, DeJuan Jones, fourth-round pick out of Ohio State, but he was a raw rookie. He played so well that it was unbelievable. And these guys got so much out of DeJuan. Bill did, and Scott Peters, the assistant offensive line coach, did. It was really something to watch until DeJuan went down with his own knee injury later in the season. He did a phenomenal job to the point where people were talking about him in Pro Bowl terms. He gave up only 3 sacks and 419 pass block snaps, and I think 21 pressures. He just did a tremendous job to the point where I think he will either be the starting right tackle next season or, he's going to start for them next season on one of the sides, probably at right tackle. And so that was one thing. But Bill Callahan, he took a no-name center in Ethan Posick, who came in 22, and turned him almost into a Pro Bowl center. I think Ethan may have finished top 5 amongst centers this year. It was just that sort of development all across the line that he did. He really helped left tackle Jed Wills develop into a good bona fide starting left tackle. The guards are both Pro Bowlers. It's just, and it's so much of it is because of Bill, and the Browns know this.
So by the end of the season, Pro Football Focus, we've followed through a lot of the year the best and worst offensive lines of the league. They did have the Browns as number 22 in the NFL. However, they lost their top 3 tackles to injuries last season. So their best 5 when healthy, I would imagine, is a top 10 offensive line last year. But I think it's really insightful stuff, and specifically why I am a proponent for left tackle over wide receiver in the first round this year. Because I want Bill Callahan to mold some young guy into exactly what Mary Kay Cabot just spoke about.
It was beautiful to hear her talk about how he pretty much broke down DeJuan Jones, knowing that he was going to be a guy that needed some reshaping. That was one of the biggest things. He went to the Senior Bowl, had one good day and left. Well, guess what? You can't do that in the NFL. You got to show up day after day after day. I would have loved to see that scene of him throwing up and stuff like that, because that's how you have to come into this league is, hey, you got to earn everything that you think you're going to get here. And Bill Callahan did that with the young fella.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, too, she mentioned this. Joe Flacco behind that line also went 4-1, so down the stretch. So that's a pretty good thing to equate to success.
He's elite.
Yeah.
So Shane Bowen is off to New York to join every other former Tennessee Titans coach who is either a Jet or a Giant.
Wow.
at this point. Diana Rossini reporting yesterday, Giants have hired former Titans defensive coordinator Shane Bowen to be their new DC. Both Joe Shane and Brian Dable stressed the importance of taking their time in the process. Interesting that you're going from a defensive coordinator who blitzes more than anybody in the NFL to one who blitzes nearly as little as anyone in the NFL, and Shane Bowen. The Giants blitzed 45% of the time in 2023. That's second most in the league under Wink Martindale. The Titans blitzed 22% of the time. About half of the blitzes that Wink Martindale called. That is 24th in the NFL. Interesting. So that will be a big change. I know we've spoken about the Mike Vrabel speculation, words, analysis about being a big human. We've beaten around the bush on this. We will get to that coming up in just a few minutes. There's been lots to discuss that has come up at different times than we expected this morning, so we apologize for that. But we will get to that conversation coming up in just a moment, where the quote from Diana Rossini says that one GM told her at the Senior Bowl Vrabel's physical build is hurting him from being a head coach. We'll get to it next.
It's Ramon and Kayla here for Window Nation. And y'all, it's cold. It's somewhat gets warm here right now, too. But that must mean it's February, where your energy bills can be in an all-time high. So now it's time to replace those windows with 50% off all window styles and pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. Now's the time to protect your family from the elements, lower your energy costs, and upgrade the look and feel of your home.
Yeah, this is the time to maybe check out your windows this week. It's supposed to be like 59 and sunny today, 60-something tomorrow. Go open up your windows. Maybe see if they're opening up properly. Maybe you see some water down there from the weeks of storms we had about a couple weeks ago. That probably means you need new windows from Window Nation, and our friends have you covered. The average installer has over 16 years of experience with over 20,000 windows installed. We talk about those energy bills all the time. You want to make sure you're saving year-round, not just in the winter, not just in the summer. You can do that with new windows from Window Nation. And look, maybe your house is just 10 years old and you're guessing, well, my windows are in fine shape. That's not necessarily true. Check them out. Make sure they are in good shape, even if your house isn't that old. Check our friends out at Window Nation. They will do you right. It is 866-90Nation or log online to windownation.com.
9 o'clock. What's going on? Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Super Bowl week continues, and we get an injury update from Chiefs guard Joe Thuney in an interview saying his status for practicing this week is up in the air, taking it day by day, wondering if he's going to be able to make it out there to practice to make it out at the Super Bowl. Time will tell. We heard from Roger Goodell yesterday as well, announcing the NFL will play its first ever game in Brazil next season, and also their first ever game on a Friday. They announced one of the teams playing in the game will be the Eagles. The other competing team will be announced, and kickoff time closer to the beginning of the season. And the Giants finding their defensive coordinator yesterday, and it is former Tennessee DC Shane Bowen. Giants interviewed Bowen on January 12th, took their time finding the right fit at defensive coordinator, and now have effectively replaced Wink Martindale. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone for one final hour this morning. Ron Slay will join us in 20 minutes, recapping a Tennessee win up in Rupp Arena, something that we have been able to recap quite a bit over the last 5 years. Still a foreign concept to me, but something that continues to happen. 4 years out of the last 6. It's not bad.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll
Not
take that.
bad at all. 615-737-1045 is our number. We'll get to some other news where another Titans coach is popping up elsewhere. Tell you about that coming up in just a moment. Plus what Austin Price of AllQuest said earlier in the show about a key Tennessee assistant who is potentially being poached, and his opinion on whether or not that will happen. But, guys, there is this from Diana Rossini, who yesterday on the Athletic Football Show says this: I don't think there was a fit for Mike Vrabel. I don't think he sat in front of any owner who thought that his style was going to work for what they were looking for. I had a GM at the Senior Bowl who mentioned to me Vrabel's physical build, that he's a very large human being and can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions, and that is a factor. Diana Rossini then added more context this morning. Context, always a good thing. We don't get a ton of in this business, or really in any other, in the year 2024. Adding on Twitter this morning, I absolutely laughed at the notion, but the GM followed up by saying, I'm just telling you, I've been in rooms, and somebody's physical presence can make a difference. She then adds, however, this is not the reason, despite it being a very entertaining theory.
Sorry, that just made the whole thing when I saw it last night made me chuckle a little. And look, I'm not a GM and I'm not running a team, but I'm just speaking from my experience as a media member. There was not one point where, at least when he stepped to the podium for the first time, yeah, you're like, he's a big human being, right? No doubt about that. And yeah, the way that he presents himself sometimes, he can be a little intimidating just by the way he is, but not necessarily because he's a big guy. It's just that Mike Vrabel is that tough Ohio kind of mentality, personality. And Joshua Perry said it yesterday on the show. You have to really give him a chance sometimes. And sometimes it's not even your cup of tea, and it never will be. But it takes you a while to see what's behind that big stature of a guy. But by no means did I ever feel intimidated as a media person by the height of him or the build of him. That's why I laughed. And I know that's not the end all be all. But for a GM to really say that, that's intimidating, it's funny to me.
Me personally, I can see that as being true. I can. I do. I think it's a little bit as far as these GMs, where perception meets reality of him. Vrabel, I'm not sure is the guy that smiles a whole lot, especially if you're going into an interview. What more do you have to smile about in those moments? You just got fired, and of course, people talking about how good or how bad you were. Also, you have a lot of storylines around you. And in that world, I would say, and I've always kind of said this, athletes are big dudes. So some of them, when you play linebacker, outside linebacker, O-line, D-line, that type of stuff, it can be intimidating if you don't know that person. If y'all have heard about me, man, Moan is a little different, man. Y'all got to tread a little lightly. When I walk in, you're probably going to feel that tension a little bit too. And then that world where you're the guy or lady when it comes down to your ownership and how you view people, I can see some people feeling somewhat inferior to it. I can see them somewhat taking a back seat to his presence because Vrabel is a tall guy. But when you're in that world, Kayla, and you're in that world, you know him. You've seen him in different interactions. It doesn't faze you as much.
But I don't have power either, right? I'm not a GM. I'm not an owner. That's different. And I'm agreeing to you on that.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you, Ramon. Because I'm not intimidated by it because I'm not a power person.
But you know him, though.
Right.
That's a little bit different. For the people that he walks in a room blindly to, I can see that being true. I'm not saying that hell is keeping him away from getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
But I could probably have some people that need to unlock a little bit when they see and have a conversation with them. I get that.
To me, it just speaks to what you said, an hour ago about the difference between good and bad position coaches is security or insecurity in themselves. This just sounds like a very insecure general manager. I mean, because right now there's basically two schools of thought. I sound like Dwight Schrute talking about Bears. There's two schools of thought on direction you go head coaching wise. You go with a nerd or you go with a football guy. I'm oversimplifying the explanation, but I don't think the truth is too far away from that. You either get a Mike McDaniel or you go get a Dan Campbell. And there is nuance to that is probably begging to be voiced about, look, no, I am oversimplifying it, and I get that. But the perception around the league right now is either you get a football guy or you get a nerd. Jim Harbaugh, football guy. Dan Campbell, football guy. And I think what I like about Brian Callahan is he fits into, and I use the term nerd affectionately. Anyone who knows me in high school will tell you that I am that, that you get a little bit of both with him. And you get the people skills in addition to the offensive mindset and understanding offenses and things of that nature. But, I mean, Antonio Pierce is not a small guy.
No.
D'Amico Ryans, not a small guy. Like, you can go down the list of coaches. Andy Reid, not exactly a small guy. Nick Sirianni, 6'2". Like,
I think it's the persona, too.
It is. And I understand, though, that there was not a team out there willing to give Mike Vrabel the control that he was fighting for here. And we've seen reports that Vrabel was the second choice in L.A., which to me says their structure says we want someone to come in and run this for us. And that's what they got in Jim Harbaugh, someone who's going to have a loud voice in that room on every decision made.
I just think there's not a lot of those jobs out there, at least right now, in how things have kind of shifted in the way of hiring coaches that are more of the nerd persona. And I don't even want to use that, but more of the kind of genius mind of coordinating. And I think it's changed just a little. Now, there's still those jobs out there, and it will be interesting to see next year in that cycle if there is an opening that fits that more old school mentality, way of doing things. But I just don't see that shifting anytime soon in terms of that many organizations wanting to go that route.
It'll circle back. It will, to where you need
Always
this type
does.
of structure. But not in the era that football is in right now, currently.
And it just depends on what openings are out there, right? Because you always do overcorrect to the opposite of what you just had. And it does feel like maybe there is a changing of the guard happening from Pete Carroll's and Bill Belichick's to Sean McVay's and these younger coaches. Kevin O'Connell, Mike McDaniel, Gerard Mayo, albeit as a defensive mind. So Mike Vrabel will be a head coach, I think, this time next year, but he'll be a good TV guy in the meantime.
And look,
if he wants to be.
Maybe he looks back at his time here in Tennessee. He's seen kind of what's out there. He's heard the feedback and can maybe change a little bit, right? And not 100% change, but be a little bit more of a guy that can listen or can be a little more hands-off. I think that's the way that you succeed moving forward.
Mike Garafolo, NFL media, reporting that Titans offensive coordinator Tim Kelly has been hired in New York as well. New York Giants tight ends coach for Tim Kelly. So Tim Kelly and Shane Bowen will once again be on other ends of staffs. Tim Kelly at tight ends and Shane Bowen as defensive coordinator for the Giants.
Only one that somewhat at least kept his status or elevated it is Shane Bowen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that speaks a lot. Will, you said earlier, well, the defense wasn't that bad this year. And it wasn't. I think it got, beat down and probably just ran out of gas in a lot of games and stuff like that. But watching the OC go to a tight ends coach, watching the O-line coach go to an assistant O-line coach, and, as they kind of dispersed and landed in other destinations, I will say this. I don't necessarily think those are bad things because they still have jobs. But it also shows you probably the amount of growth that these coaches got to have. Like even Tim Kelly on play calling, like, man, we don't probably trust you enough to give you the play calling slip again, but we trust you enough to coach up this group and probably learn and grow from the side as far as learning how the tight ends and O-line probably got to work together as opposed to you being in charge of fully calling this offense. We'll see where they land in the next 2-3 years for sure.
Speaking of staffs, Austin Price of AllQuest, if you missed the conversation at 8 o'clock this morning, it is available wherever you download podcasts, spoke about a Tennessee assistant being potentially poached within the SEC, and why Vols fans should not have to worry about that. This was Austin Price of allquest.com. Again, hour 3 at the beginning of that hour, where you can find this wherever you download podcasts, on Rodney Garner potentially going back to his alma mater.
Well, I think the NFL teams, because there's always movement, that always is a possibility, right? Like, could they come and take a swing at a Brian Jean-Marie or Jerry Mack or whoever? Absolutely. At this time, though, I don't see any movement. Now, Auburn doesn't have a defensive line coach. A lot of people have asked about Rodney Garner. I believe, people at Auburn have reached out to Rodney Garner. But at this time, I do not believe he will leave. Now that is his alma mater, so that they keep swinging, you never say never, but I don't believe at this time, as we said here on Tuesday morning at 8:14 your time, that's kind of headed that direction. I think Rodney has been in the office. He's been in meetings. He's been watching, winter workouts. He has been every bit a part of Tennessee football. And to me, like right now, I just don't see him leaving. So at this point, I do not see any changes.
There he was. At this point, I do not see any changes.
I'll take that.
Austin Price says. I think that is good news for Vols fans, keeping their staff intact. 615-737-1045. Ron Slade joins us talking Tennessee hoops coming up next.
It's Ramon Foster here for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, y'all. And it's Valentine's season and love is in the air, okay? Some love for you. Hiller got plenty of love for you, where you can find your perfect match this month at Hiller, all right? Where you can get a free UV light when you purchase a select new HVAC system for your home, or just one of them, all right? Or get free whole home surge protection when you buy a new whole home generator. We've talked about this before, man. That could save you in those storm moments where or somebody ended up, disrupting your energy to your house. You have a generator to help you get that back up, and Genesis will Hiller will give you a free whole home surge protector on top of that, or get 50% off of Diskeller when you buy a new tankless water heater. You'll never be more in love with your home than what Hiller can provide for you right now. So find your perfect match at happyhiller.com.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone as the Toby Keith tributes continue. Ron Slay on his way to our downtown Cumulus Nashville studios, where he will join us as soon as traffic decides to allow him to join us. Po Buddy's nerfed.
Man, traffic be hating on my dog every time. Traffic hating.
Praying on his downfall.
It's not a good time.
That's right.
I got caught yesterday in it.
I did too on my way back from yoga, and I was like, what the heck is going on? I don't drive around this time.
Everybody was, they were being redirected because of 40 West was shut down.
That's why. That's why. Yep.
Robert Walsh, what is your favorite Toby Keith song? Because you just played mine. Fear for My Horses is number one for me.
It is probably I should have been a cowboy.
The original.
We were just talking about it in the break. That was his first number one hit. He came to Nashville. Nobody liked his music. He gave the right demo tape to the right flight attendant, who gave it to the right CEO of some magical music company, and now we've got Toby Keith. Did you guys know Toby Keith has his own movie?
Does he?
No.
Beer for My Horses. So a movie based off the hit country song. It is a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I will be watching it tonight.
Oh, my God.
0%. Oh, well.
Wow.
It's got a bunch of classics in it, bunch of good old boys.
I did, speaking of movies, I watched Gran Turismo yesterday on the flight back from London. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Really, really
Me
good.
too.
Yeah, it's really good.
David Hopper in Stranger Things. I need a Stranger Things update, by the way, too, and when that new season's coming out, because I anxiously await that. Anyway, I'm getting really off topic and my jet lag is setting in. But Toby Keith, it has been fun reliving a lot of great music this morning for a guy who is gone too soon at the age of 62.
Mm-hmm.
Very sad. This morning, we also got some news for us.
Yay. Tell 'em, Will.
Barrett Sports Media's top 20 morning shows in mid-markets in sports. Number 4. In the top 5.
Let's go.
We have made the top 5.
Go.
We will continue to climb, because if you ain't first, you last, and we will continue to climb for number 1.
Hey, we out here, man.
Man, I really wanted to be able to use top 2, and we're not 2.
Well, I was going to tweet out and say, we're top 5 and we're not 5.
Exactly.
Or 3 or 2.
So we're 4.
Yeah.
So that's good, man. And I always say it's competition in a lot of stuff that we do. And I've always kind of personally held on to certain stuff to be like, okay, I want to knock this person off their rocker and do this and move up. Mm-hmm. It's always competition. And I love the fact that some recognition is given right there. Shout out to Bear Sports Media, to you guys, to everybody that listens to us too. Being top 5 in this market against this type of competition reigns high. And when I say competition, I'm talking about the Cold Cubelics, the other people in other mid-major markets and stuff like that. So I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah, appreciate the listeners as always. It's awesome. We've been on the air now a year and a half or so. So definitely see some growth, and that's all thanks to you all.
Went from number 7 to number 4. So jumping into the top 5 in a show that has not even had its second birthday yet, we'll take it.
Big time.
We will certainly take it. And Barrett Sports Media does a great job covering the business, covering the people that talk to you all, both here and around the country. So certainly good people to know, good people who are plugged into the pulse of this business and the business of media in sports and in news and all of those things. But we will stay tuned, as all of our teammates will also all be ranked over the next couple of days. Midday tomorrow, afternoons the day after that, and then stations overall after that as well. So
cool.
I forget where we were as a station last year, but genuinely, I think if you guys listen to us and if you listen to other shows on the station, I think you can hear the sense of teamwork and the sense of camaraderie that we all have for each other. And I think that's what everybody wants in their workplace, people that are politely and healthily competitive. And we all compete with one another, and at the same time understands that if one of us is ranked in the top 5, then that's going to help the other ones get up there too, and vice versa. So there's a good sense of people on this station all rooting for one another, supporting one another. I'm very thankful for that within this building, that we've got a good culture of people around here. It's a good time to listen to 104.5 The Zone. So if you are listening to the sounds of our voices this morning, you probably already know that as well. And we appreciate you for putting us in a position to be successful, because we couldn't do it without you.
Heck yeah.
Perfectly said, Will.
Thank you.
And immediately my mindset is like, all right, well, what do we need to do to get 3, 2, and 1?
Who do we need a kneecap?
I'm a sicko like that.
Where's Tanya Harding when you need her? Respectfully.
Where is she?
You never know. She could be hiding behind coat and, sweatshirt.
And congratulations to our sister station in Birmingham and Jocks and Mac and Cube, who are number one. Greg McElroy and Cole Kubelik, guys you have heard on SEC Network. Ron Slay's teammates on SEC Network, who are number one for the second straight year. Congratulations to them for sure. Good guys who we enjoy interacting with every time we see them at SEC Media Days, all these things, and they do a good show.
They have been doing a good show. Love that about them, man. And
so we're coming for you.
Too. We are coming for them. I mean, however it takes, whatever it takes, we will. That's my mindset.
615-737-1045, our number. Ron Slay will join us whenever, again, traffic allows him to join us. Talking about the South Carolina loss last week and Tennessee's win over Kentucky. I think it's interesting when you speak about a sport that is so predicated on March and on getting hot, right? That loss to South Carolina might ultimately doom Tennessee's SEC championship campaign, or lack thereof now, where that loss could end up being the difference. But to me, the display that Tennessee showed at Kentucky, I'm not sure if Tennessee beats Kentucky if they don't learn some lessons against South Carolina. And that's what I want to talk to Slay about. When you form the resume and totality at the end of this thing, yes, it's important, right, to understand, hey, if you lose to South Carolina, you're less likely to get a 1 seed and all these things. And Joel and Artie talked about that of like, look, Houston and UNC are not moving off that line. Or Kansas and UNC, I think it was. It's going to be hard to move them off that 1 line. And that South Carolina loss might hurt Tennessee's chances of being a 1. But is Tennessee making the similar mistakes and relying on Dalton Connect too much in March if they don't lose a game at home that teaches them some lessons in January? I'm making that trade-off 10 times out of 10 if you see that there was a trade-off. And I think we saw Saturday night against Kentucky, Tennessee wasn't as reliant on Dalton Connect, and they learned lessons against South Carolina that they carried into a top 10 environment. And
then most times in championship chasing seasons, which should be every season, you find yourself as a team having that conversation. I know the coaches do with the team by saying this. By the time this date hits, I don't know when it is. Let's say the South Carolina or the first time you see Auburn or something. By the time this date hits, we need to have either learned our hardest lesson or our last loss. That's how you got to approach certain situations like that. And being that they lost to South Carolina the way they did, who were very much underranked when it comes and underjudged on how their season was going to go. And even after they beat Tennessee and the Kentuckys and other teams who still wasn't given their respect factor, you got to kind of say to yourself as a team like the Vols probably had to say, and this is what Rick Barnes said to him the other day, was the idea that, look, we got to play tough. I'm demanding a lot more out of you guys. And I think when you lose to a team like South Carolina the way they did, and in somewhat embarrassing fashion where they pretty much just got routed in all types of ways and tried to lean on Dalton Connect as much more than they probably wanted to in those moments. That's why you had Josiah picking up. That's why you had Zakai playing the way he did. And not just that, having Toby Awaka. You know what I'm saying? Be a guy that stood tall when you needed to see who was going to be your bully. Who's going to, like that? I think the South Carolina brought that out of them to say, you know what, no matter who you are and where we are, as far as being on the road or in Thompson Bowling, that we have to have this mindset moving forward. I do want to see how they will bounce back after a dub like that. I'm always super interested to see how you do in good moments, just as much as I am in bad moments. That was a big-time win in Rupp Arena this past weekend. What will they look like the next game? Will they come out flat? Those are the conversations I want to see because I do think they took another step as far as mentality and just personality from this past weekend.
Well, Joe Lunardi said after that win against Kentucky, he feels like that they are a number 1 seed in the tournament. And there's still a lot of ball to be played, and they've got to go to Alabama, and they've got to play Auburn, right? And so there's things that can happen. But I think that's the best case scenario when you see a loss like that at home to South Carolina, and then you see a bounce back going to a place where it is tough to play, right? Rupp Arena is tough to play. Now, for the Titans, for the Vols, it's been not a breeze, but it's been easier under Rick Barnes. He's had success up there. What I think they learned a lot about, though, is Dalton Connect is their best player. I think we can all agree on that. But he doesn't have to be a guy scoring 30 every night and honestly shouldn't be a guy scoring 30 every night in order to be successful. You have to be able to lean on your other pieces and have a collaborative effort sometimes from these guys. And Josiah Jordan-James and Zakai Zeigler were two of those names we talked with Ron Slay about a couple of weeks ago that needed to step up in some way. And they were able to do that in a critical moment. And now you kind of learn what it feels like when we have a team effort like this. Right. It's not going to be like that every night, guys. Right. But at least you know you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the full context from Joe Lunardi did say that Tennessee is the first 2 seed for him right now. Because he posted on Twitter, this was over the weekend, that Tennessee would be his 5th team, and then 1 through 4 is Purdue, UConn, Houston, North Carolina, and essentially said just because Houston lost at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, that's not going to put them off of the 1 line. Where this now becomes difficult for Tennessee is they're going to have head-to-head losses to teams they're battling for that last 1 seed spot over the course of these final couple of weeks, where you've got Purdue, Kansas, and North Carolina who've all beaten them. North Carolina right in front of them at 4 and Tennessee at 5. So right now, as it would stand, Tennessee would be the 2 seed in North Carolina's bracket, and you'd get a rematch, which with a totally healthy and back to strength Zakai Zeigler, I would like Tennessee in that one.
I mean, look at the mistakes that that Dalton Knecht was making that game, too. He was trying to dribble through traffic that game. That was one of those, I think we had the conversation with Savage as far as talking about how he needs to transform his game. I think his game from that game till now is totally different. It was 37 points, I feel like, in that showing, but it was so much that you had to lean on him in that aspect. So I'm interested to watch him grow from that one to where he may be minimized so that others can step it up also.
We talked about the physicality in that game too, where, look, they let him play a little, but I just felt like Tennessee overall looked like the more physical team. So good to see in a rivalry like that. And when you're always being talked about going up there, it's always a tough place, like that atmosphere and them being able to out-physical them in the end, another big thing for Tennessee to learn about themselves in that one.
That was a big game, 37 points. If I'm not mistaken, they almost dropped 40 on them the first time he played Carolina. I want to see what the rest of the team does with him, not having to force it as much.
Yeah, it's good to see Josiah Jordan-James and Zakai Zeigler getting back to themselves. And I think the stat was Zakai Zeigler contributed to 60 of Tennessee's 103 points, either scoring or assisting. That is a ridiculously high number because the amount of free throws Tennessee made on Saturday in Rupp, Tennessee, I don't think, is losing to a single team in college basketball with Zakai Zeigler giving that level of play.
He is a nuisance out there, too.
60 points out of 103 is so many points for a point guard to contribute to. Like, that is genuinely ridiculous in a good way. Yeah. So once Slay gets here, we will ask him about that.
Yeah, I have to. And I got to ask him why he stood up on Saturday, too. He got out of character on Saturday. He was talking about the players in the locker room. Yeah. Slay. He had a Slay moment on Saturday, man. Yeah, he did. It was about Auburn's players saying they took over the locker room and stuff like that. I want to get the answer as to why. And I talked to him 4 or 5 times on the phone and I asked him, man, what made you stand up? I want to see what he has to say about that one because that Auburn and the Ole Miss game was a good one. I think in the pregame they actually asked them who was going to win. They went Ole Miss because Ole Miss was playing at home and but they took it over.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually pulled that audio for Slay. But since the fact that he's not here, I'll give you a little background for anybody that wasn't listening. What happened on SEC Network?
What up, dog?
The numbers, forget all that. The locker room is owned by the players. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can give me all your X's and O's, give me all your strategies, any of that. Throw that out. At some point, hey, man, you got to toe the line. Mano a mano. Is that how you say it, dog? What you just talking about? Mano. And tell each individual, each athlete, hey, dog, we ain't standing for this. We mean different. The War Damn Eagle, that cry's different. Right. I don't care if we on the road or in the jungle. Hey, man, I'm so proud. Boy, I've been hype all day. But if you think I ain't hype for later on, I need all this energy.
I thought you were about to give us an early headband.
I did too. You started to reach into that.
I'm just saying.
So with some M&M's coming out some early.
I just got some headphones right now, but hey, later on, pay attention, man, because that right there is special.
Ron Slay is in the building to
what
hear
an
himself
intro.
on SEC Network.
That's how you come in. Bert,
That's fantastic.
About, baby. That's how you take care of your dog. You feel me? You know what I mean? Just come in with the right, you know what I mean? The right little introduction. Yeah. That's how you do that. What's happening, y'all?
Welcome.
What up, though, man?
What took you to that point?
Man, I'm looking at it, Savage, and we talk about this all the time, man, how you're only as good as your leadership in the locker room. You know what I'm saying? Like your coaches and everything, they're the brainiacs, they're scheming, they're watching film, they're doing this and that. But, man, when you put all that to the side and you don't play teams at this point in the season, it's about, man, who you are. You know what I'm saying? Where does your character? Like, will you stand, if your back is against the wall, will you come out fighting or will you curl? You know what I'm saying? Will you go into hiding? And I love that dude because Ole Miss was rocking. Like, when they panned to that at the beginning of the game, I said, Auburn in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had the guy Kyle Wakefield.
The towel.
Yeah,
Towel
the manager, the student manager out there, man, his energy was crazy. Marshall Henderson came out there, got on the mic. His energy was crazy. Morgan Freeman was out there, John. You know what I mean? They could let him say 2-3 words. They would have went crazy. It's just that environment was on 10. And they were ready to play. I thought they was going to beat Auburn. And to go in the locker room and get to pull the curtain back. And, like, we hear this all the time. But for a player to come right out and say it, it's like, wow. Because that's what I say it all the time. When the Titans are going through their flaws and their losses and everything, I say every time, man, I just would have gave the GM and them a check, a blank check. Go on and find me, dog, because I'm going off when I go in here. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's cool. Ain't nobody got to like me. But I ain't finna stand by and watch us get mopped like this. You know what I'm saying? Not when we work hard every day in practice. Man, what are we doing? And that was dope, dog. That was, man, I'm telling you, we had so many conversations about this on the back porch, dog. And when they was saying it, I was sitting there looking like, wow, is anybody else listening to this like I am? Because I want to be in that locker room.
I bet.
You know what I mean? That's what you want to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? So that was dope, man. So salute to him. And it's a testament to the players, them believing in him. Like, can't nobody just anybody walk in there and say that. You know what I mean? Because as a player, you'll be looking like, oh, this fool time. Check him out again. Yeah. I'm tapping Savage like, here you go again, y'all. He got another of these speeches. He think this going to turn something. Nah, but for him to come in there and say that and then follow and then go out there and perform the way that they smoked him in the second half.
Facts.
Kudos to him, man. That was dope.
Ron Slay in the building with us. When we come back, we'll talk about Tennessee's win in Rupp Arena, something that has become much more common under Rick Barnes than it has been under previous administrations in Knoxville. What lessons did Tennessee learn against South Carolina that allowed it to have such an outstanding offensive performance in Rupp Arena? Ron Slay with us as we continue to the end of the show. Next.
When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of the time we homeowners pretend we do not see the warning signs. We're afraid of what we're going to hear. This is especially true with waterproofing and foundation repair. It could be something big that needs to be fixed right away, or maybe a small problem now that'll become bigger later, or it could be nothing at all. Bottom line is we don't know, and we certainly don't want to be sold something we do not need. What we need is a peace of mind, and United Structural Systems is the company to give you that. If you do have to have some foundation repair or waterproofing done around your house, you also have the peace of mind knowing that USS provides the honest diagnosis and stand by their work and warranties. This is huge. And USS is based right here in Middle Tennessee. They are members of our community. And USS has been in business for over 25 years, and they aren't going anywhere. USS keeping homes dry and stable for over 25 years, and they are serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. You can reach them online at ussTN.com or call them 615-488-7855.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone with Ron Slay in studio. The Buck Rising Show is coming up next. What are you laughing at over here?
He just put a straight out the NBA.
What?
He just put a Strella out the NBA.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
We're having an off-air conversation, and I said, we're talking about Tennessee constructing their rosters. I meant one and done.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
We said, I was saying I'd rather have a guy who's more of a 3 or 4 star who's not going to go to the NBA than a 5-star. I said, like JP Estrella, obviously. And what I mean by that, because the music was playing, so I put on my headphones of he's not going to go as a one and done to the NBA.
Right, yeah, I get that part.
But it sounded really harsh.
It did. I was like,
obviously, he doesn't have a career.
Will Bowling, crusher of dreams.
Get his 4-5 years in, and that's it. Counseling.
No, that's not what I meant. Anyway,
no, I got you though. I got you.
So we're talking about it before you got here about you will trade a loss to South Carolina and maybe a lesser shot at an SEC championship for learning a lesson that allows you to win more games in March. I know that's I'm maybe making a leap there, but if you're telling me, hey, you've got a chance to be better in March, but it's going to take you losing a game because you always learn more in a loss than you do in a win in order to learn that lesson. To me, watching that game back against Kentucky, Tennessee was less reliant on Dalton Connect having to be the offense because they realized we relied on him way too much against Carolina, and we did against Vanderbilt too, but we didn't learn from it as much as we beat Vanderbilt. We lost South Carolina. We got to change what's going on offensively here.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of both. I think a little bit of it was Dalton Connect. I thought he started to play different, you know what I'm saying? And a little bit of it was the team. I thought they started to rely on him more. And that's totally understandable when you got a guy on a heater like that. And I think the most impressive thing about Dalton Connect coming into the conference play was he was getting these 30-point games in the flow of the offense. You know what I'm saying? Instead of guys, because we continue talking about the reason the defense wasn't in gaps when he was driving and being all around them is because of the ball movement and player movement. And he was just getting it and being able to go in the flow of the offense. Now, once you stop passing the ball and watch, now it's like, okay, the defense is going to stop and watch too. And they're loading up and there's no more player movement, backdoor cuts, and things of that nature, getting easy baskets. So I think it was a combination of both. I think what you take out of it is we wasn't aggressive when you look at the South Carolina game. Yeah. Like for Zakai to go out there and have 2 points and those come from free throws, that's not being aggressive. You know what I'm saying? You're taking care of the ball and things of that nature, playing defense, but you're not being aggressive. Santi, the same thing. Josiah, the same way. Adu, the same way. Like, you got to look at the layups that were being blown. The Estrella, who you just brought up, had a point-blank dunk in that South Carolina game. Right. And he, you know what I mean, of course, wouldn't be going to the NBA after that. But, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the list goes on. And you got Meshack. Like, look how aggressive these guys were. They pushed the ball ahead. This prime example. They pushed the ball ahead one time, gave it to Zakai. He brought it up, hit it to Jemiah Meshack in the corner. Jemiah Meshack faced up and thought about kicking it back to Zakai, and then instinctively walked the guy down to the post with 3 or 4 dribbles and did a hook shot. It was like, whoa, are you feeling yourself? You know what I'm saying? This was you going to break off the offense. I got the mismatch. Let me go on and attack. That's an aggressive mind state, and that comes from also the defensive end. Reed Shepherd had never seen Zakai Ziegler before in his life. And he saw him all day inside of his jersey.
Sure did.
I never seen Reed Shepherd like this. Is working his way into a top 15 pick. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The man couldn't get his dribble together. Like, that was different. And Zakai stealing the ball and laughing and stuff like it's. That's what I mean by that maturity of a mature group going in there playing against these freshmen, and that's their downfall every time. So
why does everybody? He's not the headliner. Why does everybody bring up Jemiah Meshack?
Because of all of the intangible things that he does. And you need guys to be – it's cool to have the stars, but the stars aren't the stars of the guys that do the little things can, you know what I mean, boost them up on their platform. If I can't boost them up on their platform, all of a sudden they come down and they got to do the little things like diving for loose balls, going to go rebound, guarding multiple positions, being the energy guy. He's so selfless I think that right there is why his light shines.
It's
so bright.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
I was listening to Coach Barnes last night talk to him about Kessling with the Vol calls, and he couldn't stop talking about Shaq.
Because you got to have them guys. You got to, and that's what I tell everybody. Like I was speaking with them in the offseason, and I was like, man, dude, you got to relish in your role. You know what I mean? The reason I love being the sixth man is because I get to sit back, analyze the game, and whatever the game's missing, I get to go add to it. I don't have to go out and set the tone. I get to change the tone of the game.
Yeah.
That's a special thing if you buy into that. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he does. And I think that's why everybody would love to have one on your team.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
And look, you're not going to get a game every game where you're going to have 5 players in double-digit scoring.
Right.
But you look at the overall team effort in that, and we're speaking about all these individuals. You do, I would think, take something from the way that you played in that manner.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's the way you want to go out there and play. You would rather have a team win than me saying Dalton Connect carried us to a win. You know what I'm saying? Because that's going to translate to the next game and the game after that. The Dalton Connect getting hot and carrying you through a game, through 2 games. Okay, when he stops it, when somebody stops him, then what? You know what I'm saying? You can't rely back on guys to try to get a rhythm again. That's why it's so important to get into the flow of the game and get your buckets that way. That 16, that was a good 16 by Dalton Connect. You know what I'm saying? Just his impact being on the floor is different because you got to pay attention to him. Same thing we were saying. The reason Dalton Connect gets to play like that is because Santi's on the floor, Josiah's on the floor, and you better not leave him.
It's like they got into that groove early, too.
Yes, they did. But that's about being, okay, we're finna hit you in the mouth.
Absolutely.
Let's go. And we know we're going to have to take one.
Yep.
But let's get it on.
And they walked that freshman real quick from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Dillingham.
Which one?
Dillingham.
Yeah.
Dillingham.
And see, guess what, Savage? Before you can go there, that's the thing. That's what I was worried about, too. Putting these 7-footers back into the mix does that. They were playing so well as Reed Shepard and Dillingham coming off the bench. DJ Wagner and Antonio Reeves being the starters. Now, DJ Wagner goes down. You bring Dillingham up. When DJ Wagner comes back, does he still get those same shot attempts? You know what I'm saying? You got something to juggle. Cal got something to juggle right there, man.
Most recent update 20 minutes ago, Joel Lenardi, Tennessee is a 2 seed, number 6 overall. Still lots to be decided.
Kansas lost last night.
And 9 SEC teams in, according to him. 9 of them.
I told somebody on
Georgia.
Huck them little station in Birmingham, I think, last night. And they started laughing. Joel Lenardi said the same thing. Y'all gonna keep on laughing.
Back
keep
at
on
it
boosting
again
to the top.
tomorrow morning. Ron Slay, thank you. The Buck Rising Show. Coming up next, Ramon Foster sent us.
Hey, you must remember at all time your Twitter fingers and your mic. And Ron Slay is always hot.
Scorching.